All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's always join buttons here on the video page and the description and all that. But I see we have a bunch of people already joined in here, so thanks so much everyone for stopping by. So we have Theodore, Grand Admiral Thrawn, Brian, Cars, Vishal, Linda, Anthony, Harsha, Danny, B. Mitchell, Kevin, Kyle, Dodgy, Raphael, and Drunken Car Guy. Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. So let me see here. Great Admiral Fawn, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships, and Sean as well. Thank you both so much for your generosity here, and happy to see hopefully get some people able to get those memberships here nice and early so they can join in on the discussion here if they'd like. That's awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for your generosity. Really appreciate it. All right, so let's see here. See, Grand Admiral Thrawn also says good evening, and his cool spot of the week was an Alfa Romeo Stelvio and a 370Z. Very nice spots. My spot of the week here, I saw 2 Chrysler Crossfires. It's usually rare to even see one. To see 2 in a week, and there were 2 different ones too. I was pretty impressed with that. That was cool. Also saw a Bentley Mulsanne. I haven't seen one of those in quite a while, so that was cool. Yeah, so those were my my spots. Really curious to see everyone else's. I see Theodore says, did you see the F1 trailer? What do you think about it? I didn't even know that came out. Yeah, I'm completely out of the loop on that, unfortunately. Brian says good evening as well. And Car says, hi, everyone. My spot of the week was a 3rd-gen Honda Prelude. Very nice. It's always fun to see those. It's strange because those are so reliable, yet it seems like they've kind of vanished still, unfortunately. And that's great. You got to see it. And Vishal says, good evening, Matt. Spotted a few oldies this week. Chrysler Concorde. That's cool. Toyota Echo and a late 90s Mercury Sable with a Lando top on it. Wow. That is another very impressive find. Yeah, you don't see those very often anymore. I mean, even, Toyota Echo. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw one of those. Very nice spots. Very cool. Linda's saying hi. Thanks for saying hi, Linda. And Anthony says, hey, Matt, my spot this week was a Ford Probe GT. That car was almost as fun as my 92 Taurus show that I had many moons ago. That's awesome. It's cool you got to own a show. And the Probe is really cool too. So nice spots there. And Sean, thank you so much for the first super chat of the night here. He says, last stream we talked about the Caddy XLR. Guess what I saw today at Best Buy parked next to a GR Corolla, a new SS Camaro, and a Fusion Hybrid. Nice. Well, that's cool. You got to see one, though. The local XLR around here, I haven't seen him yet this season, but hopefully I'll see him come out of hibernation here soon. And that's awesome. Thanks so much, Sean, for the super chat, too. And let me see. Other questions and spots here. So Harsha says that my local meet this week, I finally saw a new Z. My friend got it and immediately got a wing and modified the exhaust system directly after. Nice. That's cool. And glad to see people picking them up. Hopefully you got a good deal on it so that, people aren't paying markups or anything like that anymore, hopefully. So that's good. And Danny says, hello, my spots this week are a stick shift Mazda Protege 5, a Saturn L300 V6, and a Mazda Speed Protege. Very nice. Also, our Chevy Bolt rolled over 72,000 miles while coming home from my school musical. That's awesome. And the Proteges, that's another one. Man, you guys are spotting some impressive stuff here. I haven't seen a Protege in a long time, and especially the Mazda Speed one. That's a very cool find. And Saturn, I see some of those every once in a while, but those L300s are getting pretty rare these days too. I'm itching to go back to the junkyard. I'm gonna try and go sometime this spring. I've actually just been waiting on a response from Pull Apart to try and coordinate. I can just show up anytime I want probably, but I want to make sure that I'm all set up with them and stuff, so people aren't looking at me weird while I'm walking around filming everything instead of pulling parts. But I'm excited to go back to see what's hanging out in the junkyards these days. I'm sure there's some of that stuff. But B. Mitchell says, greetings from the thawing Twin Cities area. I guess my spot of the week is my own car. Since my insurance carrier decided to take off the storage coverage on their own, the 2019 Mustang GT is out. Interesting. Well, glad you're starting to enjoy it maybe sooner than usual, and happy that it's out being driven there. And Kevin says hi as well from Lakeland, Florida, as does Kyle here and Dodgy. And Raphael says hello, all first ever Nissan GTR sighting. Really? Never my favorite looking car, but the performance is there. Yeah, wow, that's crazy. So are you talking, is this like a certain generation you've never seen before? Or are we talking like R35s? That's pretty wild if you've never actually seen one out on the road before. I mean, it's been what, since like 2008 they've been out. I'm not sure. Yeah, I can't remember where you said you're at, Raphael, but that's crazy. But I'm glad you got to see one. And I think over the years they've kind of gotten better, in my opinion. I know whenever they first came out, it wasn't for everybody. And B. Mitchell says a salvage title 5-speed 21 Chevy Sonic is no longer on my radar. Too much wrong with it. Currently bid for too much, $1,800, and I'm working out of town when the auction ends this week. Gotcha. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to ask my buddy about that. Because yeah, I'm glad I'm glad you weren't interested, because definitely would have been a letdown there. I didn't want to leave you hanging there with the info on that. But yeah, if you're curious for future Sonic, so let me know and I can still reach out to him, no problem. And Vishal says a random tidbit I just remembered. My elementary school music teacher drove a final gen Honda Prelude. The license plate was a customized one that said 88 keys. Interesting. That's that's, I guess, appropriate for a music teacher there. Very cool that they had a Prelude. Yeah, my one of my cooler teachers back in the day had the R53 Mini Cooper S back whenever they like were brand new, and that was pretty distinctive car for a teacher back then. And let me see. Luke says, I have to get up early for work, so I might not be on too long. I'm super happy with my new kitchen. Made some food this weekend. Awesome. Glad you're enjoying it. Thanks for sharing the pictures on Facebook there. It looks great. And and all good about, getting up early for work. I totally understand. And let me see. Chad says, coming home from work today, I saw a beautiful and clean Chevy SS on the back of a Carvana truck. Congratulations to the new owner. That is, yeah, surprising that someone picked one up on Carvana. That's wild. But yeah, I love the SS. I always thought they were so underappreciated. Definitely a vehicle worth owning. If you want a slower, Cadillac CT4V Blackwing, CT5V Blackwing. I mean, the Chevy SS is kind of that first generation of that kind of alpha platform, and in a way, and very much a lot of the same magic, just kind of a less refined version of that magic. But I mean, it's such a fantastic car. Highly recommend them. And let me see. Carlos says, hey, Matt, long time no see. Hope everything's good with you. Absolutely. Hope everything's good with you too, Carlos. Thanks so much for stopping by. And thanks also for being a 3-year member and still supporting the channel. I really appreciate that. Hope you're doing well. And thanks so much for stopping by. And Truck and Car Guy says, interesting spots this morning was an old school Volkswagen bus. Those are always fun to see. Cooper says, driving around yesterday with a new silver Audi RS7 Avant behind me. Nice. Yeah. I saw an RS7 actually yesterday too. They're always cool to see. And I think anyone that has one of those has pretty good taste, in my opinion. Very cool. And let me see. B. Mitchell says, dang, I actually got one for the first time in ages. It looks like Danny finally did too. We must have made it off YouTube's S list. I think it's a different Danny, because I think the Danny that's on here, that's the honorary member, has his last name, I believe, on here. And the Danny that got gifted doesn't have a last name. So I think it's a different Danny, unfortunately. Not Danny Cohen, I think, is who we're looking for a membership for someday. But I'm glad to see you got one, B. Mitchell, and welcome back into the club here. And Chad says, I was watching an action movie yesterday. They had to close the trunk of their electric Porsche sedan. They had to stop and bonk the trunk close button before stealing the diamonds. Really? That's pretty funny. I'm curious what movie that is. That's kind of hilarious. Hopefully that was like a comedic moment and not like a serious thing, because that's pretty hilarious. I feel like any electric trunk like that, you can still slam them, especially if you're in a hurry on a diamond heist. That's funny. And let me see. Stratus, thanks for stopping by as well. And Kermit Ketamine says, I just bought an 18 Ford Mustang EcoBoost. Super happy with the car. I love it. I noticed that every time I put gas in it, no matter how much I fill up, my RPMs will drop at a full stop. Purge valve? I'm out of the loop on EcoBoost issues to know. yeah, I don't recall anything like that with mine, but I mean that was again 10 years ago at this point. So yeah, yeah, the forums, Reddit pages, anything like that's going to be probably, a better way to go as far as getting info on that issue. Sorry to hear that. The Mustang forums too. What was the name of the one that I was on all the time? It's completely Mustang 6G is the one. A wealth of information on there too. So that's definitely going to be the better way to get info. I wish I could help you more. I'm so out of the loop on that stuff. Once I got rid of the EcoBoost, I quit following the EcoBoost drama as far as, I think they fixed a lot of stuff with the 18. So I'm surprised you're actually having an issue with an 18, but, I'm not sure. Hopefully it still is fine and it's, not giving you any actual drivability issues, but definitely check out forums and all that to hopefully get an answer to that. Hope it treats you well though, and I keep my fingers crossed for you there. And Sean says it was silver. You always imagine them in black. Interesting. Yeah, actually, I think the one I've seen around here is also silver. I feel like that probably was the second most popular color for the XLR. For sure. So I don't think it's super rare in silver, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Dylan says, saw the Supra pace car for the New Hampshire Motor Speedway and Aston Martin, but not sure which as they look so similar. And finally, a Celica GT4 that was either imported or a well-done homage. Wow. Well, that's the most impressive spot there to me is, Celica GT4. Nice. That's awesome. And I feel like, with the increased awareness of the GT4s here, if we get a new Celica GT4 in the future, could even make those old ones appreciate. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, great spots. And let me see here. Carlos, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships as well. I really appreciate the generosity. Happy to see a bunch of other people able to get those, some familiar faces and some new ones there as well. That's awesome. So thanks so much, Carlos, for the generosity. We all really appreciate it. And let me see here. So Carlos also says, interesting car spot today was a Chevy Solstice. I haven't seen one of those in a while. Yeah, the Pontiac Solstice. Nice. I was so happy I was able to review one of those last year and finally get to experience the Solstice. They're, I think, really underappreciated. I mean, you can get a nice, like an actual nice one for like $7,000 to $8,000, at least last year when I checked. It's a lot of sports car for $7,000 to $8,000. They're reliable. It's a very well-known platform. I mean, you got a Cobalt engine. There's no surprises there. It's just a really solid little car for the money, I think, these days. And I think that's another one that has the potential to appreciate someday. Because it's like, man, remember whenever like GM could justify building multiple variants of an affordable 2-door roadster, like the good old days. Crazy stuff. But anyway, yeah, great spot. And Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, hey, Matt, still wondering if anyone has successfully connected Apple/Android Watch to their vehicle's infotainment system. There was a couple of weeks ago, I was playing around with my Apple Watch and I was looking at like the Bluetooth thing, and I don't think it lets you connect as like a regular Bluetooth device. Because I think I was trying to see like what the discoverability is for Apple Watch. I don't think it allowed that. I feel like it wouldn't, but I mean, I don't know. I think you're probably the only person that has probably tried to do that, because I know a while ago Apple pitched the idea of like, oh, you can have your Apple Watch like do everything now with the cellular stuff and all that, but I feel like everyone's just going to want to do their phone. So I think it's something that probably no one really wants to do, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I think I did. I thought of your question a few weeks ago and I was like, I wonder if this will actually do it. And I don't think it did. Because I think it just like wouldn't even give me like the right option to try and connect it. So I don't think it's possible, but I could be wrong. And thank you again for the super chat, Jordan. Hope you're doing well, you and Chad. And let me see here. Luke says, I saw an early 2000s BMW Z3 on the Ohio Turnpike. Very cool. That's awesome. That's another car that I think is a real solid value these days. I want to review one of those too someday. There's actually another member who had one, and then they ended up moving away like Hugo. And so hopefully someday either review his or review another one, because I think the Z3 is a really cool little car. Stangman said this weekend, first the GTD rolled off the line. Very cool. I didn't hear that, so thanks for letting me know. That's awesome. I guess Ford's not going to do any coverage of GTD as far as like, I'm not expecting a regular media drive, but I thought that maybe they'd bring like Motor Trend to try it out, or a couple of hand selected people, the top of the top to maybe drive it and give thoughts on it. But maybe that's still coming. I don't know. But interesting. They're going into customer hands here soon. And Raphael says, I'm in Northeast Ohio and looking at cars since the 80s. This is the first GTR I've seen. That is wild. I can't wrap my head around that. I mean, Northeast Ohio, it's not like, there's definitely, you're up Cleveland and stuff. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. That's wild, but glad you got to see one. That's awesome. And TFI PW says, missed last week's stream and forgot to update on the rental car. Wasn't a Mirage, but a base Corolla hatch, which I really enjoyed. Had a nicer interior than the core GRC at the Vancouver Auto Show. Nice. I think it's basically the same kind of base, interior as far as the dash and all that stuff. I could be wrong. Interesting. But glad you enjoyed the Corolla hatch there. Two-Track Jack says, I saw a clean looking late 80s Firebird convertible earlier today. Very nice. That's cool. Always fun to see those. Those are, I think, fairly common actually around here. I see a decent amount of Firebirds, surprisingly. I don't know if it's just, really sought after vehicle around here or what, but yeah, they're pretty popular. Sorry, I missed a couple of super chats here. So Notorious CRG, thank you so much for a super chat here. He says, Matt, subscriber for 10 plus years, Aria or Prologue? I'd say probably Prologue. I don't love either of them, to be honest. And if you are shopping for like lease deals, I'd say first test drive both of them, because the Aria that I had, if you watch my review on Aria, the brakes, it was like all over the place. The brake calibration was terrible. I could not be smooth with the brakes on that thing, and it was like a guessing game, like how much braking force it was going to give me with each pedal input into the brake pedal. So I'm hoping that was just a thing with my press car, or a software thing that got quickly fixed early on with Aria. So I don't know if you've driven both of them, but I would certainly drive both of them. Other than that, Prologue is good. I think my disappointments with Prologue are that it has less cargo space than a CRV. It has I think it may be the same kind of backseat as a CRV. It's just the Prologue is bigger than a lot bigger than a CRV, and there's no extra space inside really. And the packaging just sucks because Chevy screwed up the packaging on the Blazer, in my opinion, for Blazer EV. So, these are all just giant cars that don't give you a lot of space, and it's just unfortunate. So, and also Prologue had a glitchy infotainment system. I still would take it over the Chevy one, because at least you have CarPlay and Android Auto. But actually, Aria had a less glitchy infotainment experience, in my opinion, whenever I had it. Now, I did have the Aria for a week. I only had the Prologue for a couple of hours when I did my review. So not an apples to apples kind of comparison, but they both drive very nicely otherwise. And yeah, I'm guessing you've narrowed it down to those two, and you've disqualified everything else that those compete with for whatever reason. So yeah, I'm kind of indifferent to both of them, and I would say I would just go for whichever one is the cheapest. If they're the exact same price, flip a coin. Honestly, Prologue is very popular. I think at least around here, Prologue seems to be like the hotter seller. So if you want to follow the crowd and go with, the one that more people seem to like and buy, Prologue seems to be the more popular of the two, and that I think says something there. But honestly though, to be completely honest, Aria and Prologue are probably at the bottom of my ranking list for all of the other competitive vehicles in that segment of compact mid-sized EV crossovers. I basically rather have everything else over those two, aside from again Blazer and Equinox EV, even though they're fantastic. Just because for me the smartphone integration is a deal breaker, but yeah, I'd rather have everything else. I'd rather have Bionic 5. I'd rather have EV6. I'd rather have Mach-E. Obviously, we have the Mach-E. All the other ones, out there, I think are better. But, if those are your top two, I think personally, I like the Aria styling better. It's a little bit more futuristic on the inside. They did a better packaging job with Aria. Aria has more space. You have the cool little concept car kind of styling with the dashboard and all that, and you have like the open footwell area, and there's some cool stuff with Aria. So I think if the brake pedal's not weird, I'd probably go Aria if I had to between the two. So hopefully that helps you a little bit there. And sorry, I can't help you more, but let me know if you have any follow-up questions. I see. Okay, you did. Thank you for another super chat. Thanks, Matt. What's your next fun car? I mean, I got the Fiat 500e here. That lease is 3.5 years. So I'm not going to be shopping for anything new fun-wise for myself until, basically, mid to late in 2028. And, it's just I can't justify a fun car for myself right now. The channel still isn't doing amazing. And it's just something that I can't justify considering I, hardly ever drive stuff, hardly ever just have time for my own personal car anyway, with all the press cars that I have. If I, had some money to spend, GR Corolla is probably the thing that's calling my name the hardest. It appeals to the old Subaru Dorix fan in me, and I absolutely love it. And now, especially with my daughter getting older and having some more activities and, being a little busier, having, a four-door vehicle, if it is going to be a vehicle I'm using on a regular basis, I want something four doors. So that kind of disqualifies most of the two-door stuff, for a little while here. So GR Corolla is probably, one of my top favorites. But I have a whole list of like potential dad cars that I would buy if I, needed something I was going to be driving on a daily basis. But for right now, the Fiat 500e is a perfect backup car. Still has the back seat. It's an EV, so if it sits for 3 months, like it likely will for most of its life, it doesn't bother it one bit. And that's kind of it. I mean, the Fiat 500e is a fun little thing. I've had a really good time. Haven't had any press cars the past few weeks, and just running errands and doing little drives in that. It's a fun little thing. I actually am really enjoying it. And so that is really the fun car for now, but going to be a long time, I think, before I have a new fun car, unless the channel takes off in some extravagant way. And I, I'm able to, go out and buy some crazy, fun sports car or something. But, I put the family first, and, I don't have a super rosy outlook on, our financial future for the next few years, so I'm just kind of trying to keep our head above water and keep on doing this as my job. And those are the main things. And so unfortunately the fun car takes a backseat. Now, the lease is up on Beth's Mach-E next year. We might just buy that out since it's going to be like a 20 grand buyout or something. And if they're worth more than 20 grand, we'll probably just buy it and keep it because we're really happy with it. But we could, get her into something more fun if we can swing a really good lease deal, or if, market conditions are in our favor. So that's gonna be kind of the next fun thing to shop for is, what we're gonna do for a new fun family vehicle. But that's gonna have to be something that also, Beth is the one that drives that the most. So she's gonna, have a little bit more weight into, what she wants to drive every day. So yeah, that's the update there as far as the fun cars for now. Notorious also says, I hear you. I have 7 kids thinking MDX Type S. That's a fun one for sure. MDX Type, I mean, yeah, if you can swing one of those, I love the MDX Type S. So fun, fantastic luxury too, with the massaging seats, fantastic stereo, great looks. I love MDX Type S. Great choice for sure. If you do need maximum amount of space though, it's not the best for that, but aside from that, it's fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much for the super chats. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions too. I'll keep an eye out for your username in the future here through the chat. Yeah, more than happy. Also, if you ever want to send me an email, message, whatever, more than happy to get more context from you and really drill down, what might be the best choices for you if you're looking for some extra advice there. Let me see here. Also, Jordan, thank you for super chat here as well. He says, does the 2025 Maverick have voice commands? Yep. I think basically every modern car has voice commands these days you can do with them. Some work better than others, but absolutely a lot of I think basically everything has voice commands. Most of them these days are actually pretty usable for the basic stuff. Just you can't get too fancy with it. Yeah, thank you so much, Jordan, for the super chat. And Luke, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, I don't get why people are so judgmental. I told a coworker I'm getting a Maverick soon, and he said, unless the truck gets under 10 mpg, I'm not a man. I hope he's joking, because I think every truck on the market that you buy new gets more than 10 mpg, even in the city. I think even Ram TRX gets more than 10. I mean, I guess not in production anymore, but like I'm thinking of the biggest gas guzzlers, like Raptor R, I think does more than 10 in the city. Weird comment from that from that hater that you have there, Luke. Obviously you guys see what's going on in the world. I mean, you can't count on anyone to have any kind of decency anymore or any kind of sense. So yeah, that's par for the course. Obviously, like I tell anyone, as far as modifications or as far as what you drive, get what you love. I mean, look at me. I just got a Fiat 500e. I mean, you can imagine all the crap I got for that. I don't care. I lose not a single minute of sleep over that. It's that's the kind of stuff I've gotten real used to letting roll right off me. But yeah, thank you, Luke, for the super chat, and hope you enjoy that Maverick here. Hopefully it's coming here in the next week or so, right? That's exciting. So congrats on that. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat as well. He says, Chad's mom received her 2025 Maverick XL in February. We've experienced interior humidity, even though the windows are up. Any thoughts? I mean, I guess is you got to just make sure all the climate control stuff's on the right settings, right? To make sure it's not fogging up. That's really the only thing I can say. Usually if you're like, sometimes if you're on like recirculating instead of fresh air, or, you're not running the AC to, keep that air from getting humid and steaming up the windows. Excuse me. That's usually, the main culprits. So I'd, give that a try and check that out. But I see TFI also says turn on the AC. That's always the quick, easy fix. Just, turn the AC on, even just for a couple of minutes, and that's it. But yeah, thank you so much, Jordan, for the super chat again. And I'm hoping to review a Maverick soon too. I have a partnership with a Ford dealer now, and so even though Ford corporate's taking forever to ever send me any kind of Ford press cars, I'm going to hopefully do a Maverick here at some point this year. And let me see, getting back to other member questions here. So, where were we here? So I see Cartoon says, just replace the top of on my daughter's 98 Eclipse Spider, $1,200 well spent. She just turned 16 a couple weeks ago, and it's her first car. That's awesome. And yeah, those 90s Eclipses are super cool cars. So that's a very fun first car, and I hope she enjoys it. And Carlos says, I had a friend that has a manual Chevy SS that's full bolt-ons and has gnarly cam, glorious bald eagle sounds. Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, I love SSs, they're great. And B Mitchell says, coolest teacher car for me was my 8th grade English teacher with a minty 67 T-Bird 2-door. He bought it from the original owner at the start of the school year. By 1978, they weren't used cars anymore. Crazy. Yeah, it's sad how those things all just, again, rusted out so quickly and just disappeared for the most part. That's awesome. V Mitch also says, yeah, Mustang 6G is pretty good for him. Less doomsday whiners. Well, that's good. Yeah. Good to hear that. Yeah. A Mustang 6G is held up. Now Chad says Den of Thieves was the movie with the with the Porsche with the electric trunk slowly closing. That's funny. I'll have to check it out. Grant says, I was going to ask if it was Red Notice. Interesting. Michelle says, I don't think any watch has that capability as far as I know, Bluetooth. Gotcha. Thanks for weighing in, Michelle. I see MS is asking Tacoma or Frontier, thinking about picking up a small truck as a second vehicle to haul motorcycles. I kind of discussed those two in my reviews of them and kind of go in depth more on that. So that's going to be the best place to get all of my in-depth thoughts on both of them. Quick highlights, Tacoma, you're not going to lose much money on. So it's a better thing, especially if it's something you might want to jump out of in a couple of years. You're probably going to, just not get burned on a Tacoma if you buy one, just from a resale value point. Frontier, people really love them. I personally don't love Frontier. I mean, I know a lot of people love the simplicity of it, the old nature of it, and that's very redeeming quality. If that speaks to you, that's great. It's just the Frontier, is still kind of on the older platform, so crash testing isn't as good. The size of the cabin and stuff is a little tighter, in my opinion, and it just feels older still to me. You have window switches and you have heated seat controls from 2005 still in that thing. So there's just some of those things that, it's not that much cheaper than a Tacoma. And it's like, okay, if I'm not getting a giant savings here, then, why am I getting 15-year-old buttons in my car or my truck whenever Tacoma, has buttons and switches and all that still, and they're brand new and they're nice and cool feeling and all that. So personally, I'd rather have Tacoma. I know Tacoma is expensive. A lot of them going for price premiums or whatever, hard to find, this, that, and the other. So if Frontier is easier and much cheaper as far as actual transaction prices goes, I can understand the case for Frontier. But when I review cars, I have to compare by MSRP because I don't know what kind of deal you're going to get or what kind of, salesman you're going to be dealing with or what kind of dealership you have around you or what the incentives are at the time you're shopping. There's a million variables. So if, realistically, there's a giant enough price gap, Frontier could make sense. But I think for me, I'd rather have the Tacoma personally. Just better around town drivability too, with the turbo having a low, boost, in the lower RPMs there versus Frontier, kind of the old school. We got to ring out the old V6 and all that. It's a newer V6, but same kind of old school kind of characteristics. So anyway, that's all my highlight thoughts, but definitely, again, check out those videos if you haven't already. And let me see, AMCB, thank you for a super chat. They say, what 3 dead brands could you bring back to life? I would love to bring back Pontiac as a proper Dodge competitor, sporty, stuff. I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to see Saturn come back as a dedicated EV brand and kind of a fun way for GM to kind of do more experimental electric stuff and maybe kind of push the envelope a little bit more. I think Saturn could almost even be like a halo brand, go after Lucid, go after stuff like that potentially. Those GM brands are where I really feel the most nostalgia for some reason. And then third dead brand I'd love to see bring back. I mean, it's not a dead brand in the rest of the world, but Suzuki. I'd love to see Suzuki try another go at America with just Jimny on its own. I think Jimny could really, boost their fortunes. But Suzuki has some other stuff, in other parts of the world that I think, if we see, this trend of affordable vehicles, Nissan Versa had a gigantic sales increase last year. Mitsubishi Mirage had a huge sales increase last year. Base Volkswagen Jetta sold like crazy last year, especially towards the end of the year here. And so if we're seeing maybe there's some momentum here for smaller, cheaper vehicles and there's a chance that, people might be paying more for stuff here in the near future. There could be a strong case to be made for a company like Suzuki to come back with small, affordable stuff. And the Jimny alone, I think they could sell, at least 50,000 of those things a year here, I think, in the States, if they, keep the pricing, nice and affordable. I think the problem with Jimny is it won't pass federal safety crash tests, but I guess, if regulations are going to be thrown out the window, maybe, safety regulations will be thrown out along with the emissions ones, and you can bring in whatever you want and have companies sell whatever death traps they want to sell. So if that's the kind of environment that, we will be in for the next few years, then, it also makes it extra appealing for Suzuki, I think, to come back, in my opinion. I don't think they will, but, if we're, just doing armchair product planner over here, those are the 3 brands that kind of jump to my mind. There's others for sure, but I think those are, the top 3. I'd also like to see someone bring back Tucker as kind of like another, again, bold, daring, kind of lucid Tesla kind of competitor. I think, with this collapse of Tesla that we're seeing, I think there's a real vacuum there. And obviously all the, established names, and, I think Rivian's going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries, as will Lucid and, then all the mainstream ones too. But I feel like, there's also room for someone else to take up the mantle of something that's, pioneering and a little out of the ordinary and odd. And I think like a revised Tucker, could kind of maybe be that. Do the Cyclops headlight again, just wacky things I think could be kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, great fun question. Thanks so much for asking, AMCB. Thank you again for the super chat. And the notorious CRG, thank you for another super chat. They say, thanks for a decade plus, Matt. Enjoyed every step of the way. MDX Type S replaces our Odyssey, and the Prologue Aria replaces my Leaf. Best wishes. Awesome. Well, hope it works out for you. And great time to buy, especially the EVs. Get them while you can here with the tax credit and all that. Definitely the way to do it. And I mean, even anything, I've been telling everyone, if we are going to have tariffs, which seems likely, buy stuff now if you can, because it's going to get more expensive. There's no other way around it. So definitely a great time to buy this month here. And Scott, thank you so much for a super chat. It's also their first super chat. So thank you so much, Scott, for your first one. He says, in regards to the Hyundai N line, what changes would you like added? I mean, I don't know. I think I really like the way the N-line stuff is packaged, especially if we're talking full-blown ends. They're all so well done. I think, I'd like to see a few more options on them potentially. It'd be nice to see a Launcher N offer moonroof with the manual, which I don't believe they still. It's, I think, only moonroof on the DCT version. So I'd like to see, why not offer that? Why not offer a Lux package that gives you leather seats instead of the Alcantara? That would be a nice thing to see. And I think this is a thing I complain about also with Ioniq 5N. There's no way to get the glass roof you get in a regular Ioniq 5. There's no way to get leather seats in that. There's no way to, kind of jazz up the interior, which I think is the one little sore spot of that car, considering it's, $65,000 or whatever it is. Alcantara, I know some people really love Alcantara, but for me, that doesn't scream premium, doesn't scream expensive. And whenever the rest of the interior is regular Hyundai, it'd be nice to see, that kind of stuff. So that's really the other thing. I know we have Genesis for people who want a more upmarket Ioniq 5, and we're going to see probably GV60 Magma coming out this year, most likely, to kind of be that upmarket Ioniq 5N, but still would like to see, just a premium package, just literally throw leather seat skins on, and throw the moonroof in that's already on regular Ioniq 5s, that kind of stuff. I think just a little more options. Obviously, they keep things nice and simple, and that makes it easy from a shopping standpoint right now. But I'd just like to see, some more creature comforts, because I'm the type that likes to have my performance and my luxury as well, and kind of the grand tour mentality more so than someone that's the hardcore, like, I don't want anything, like give me like an engine mounted to a bucket and I'm good. I want to actually have some creature comforts. That's the only thing I can say. But I mean, I love all the Hyundai N products. They are so well done. And even those N line, the lower, non full blown ends are also really well done, I think, with the packaging. I'd love to see for regular N line, I'd love to see the manual come back for a Elantra N line. But, a Elantra N is so affordable that I think, you're already spending almost 30 for N line. Just spend 5 more and get way more performance. If you're already in the Hyundai showroom, just go for the full blown N. You'll have better resale value anyway. There's a whole bunch of perks that I'd go N and skip the N line. But if you're buying on the used market where N line's nice and cheap or something, it can make a lot more sense for sure. But anyway, thank you so much, Scott, again for your first super chat. And let me see here, other member questions. So I'm going to get a little more selective with the questions here, just do only member ones here so we don't get too far behind. But I think we're keeping up pretty decently here tonight. So let me see here. So Jason says, love my Corolla hatch, had it for almost 6 years. Yeah, they're really fun. I think the only thing, I just wish the manual had less rev hang, whenever they did the manual ones. But other than that, it's fantastic. And Joel says, hey, Matt, hope you and the family are doing well. My birthday week starts tomorrow. Well, happy early birthday. And as is my tradition, I've rented a car on Turo, 2024 Integra with a stick shift. I'll update next week on how it goes. Well, I hope you enjoy it. And that's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. And I'm curious to see what you think about that. I think Integra is, again, one of these very misunderstood cars. It's a really nicer Civic Si, and it's just unfortunate that, that kind of had such a rough start for Integra, whenever Integra is what it always has been, in my opinion, at least. But let me see. Chad says Mazda is innovative in creating new powertrains while a lot of other manufacturers are making excuses. Yeah, I talked about in the weekly update, I have no clue how Mazda is doing this. I do not. I mean, yeah, I've reported. I mean, the past 10 years of weekly updates here. I mean, everyone says, "Oh, we can't do a new V8 because it's too expensive." Oh, I can't. We can't do a better transmission because it's too expensive. We can't do this. We can't do that. Blah blah blah. We can't justify this. And then Mazda's like, inline six turbo in the age of downsizing. Let's add cylinders with turbos. Let's add it on a rear-wheel drive based platform. Let's do a new transmission while we're at it. Let's also, start doing rotaries again, which they're working on. Let's also do EVs and do our own dedicated EV platform. And then, oh yeah, let's also do our own dedicated hybrid platform coming out in a couple of years at the same time as the EV thing. And then they're also doing this groundbreaking Skyactiv Z engine that they're saying is going to be like near perfect combustion, mixing as far as, very, very efficient with almost no wasted fuel, supposedly. Like I said in the weekly update, I don't know if these engineers are working for free or if Mazda secretly has some billionaire financier or something, but I don't know how the accountants are making this work on the balance sheet, with gigantic companies that can't do this stuff. And and Mazda's doing it. I don't know. It really, I don't know. I'd love for someone to explain it to me because I want to understand how it's possible. But yeah, I don't know. It's awesome. I'm not complaining, but it is wild. I'm right there with you, Chad. And Harsha says a 97 Oldsmobile Aurora popped up at my meet, and the car had all LED lighting and is in surprisingly good condition given its age. I'd never seen them on the road. I actually saw an Aurora. Was it? Yeah, this past week when I was out filming at Harrison Auto Sales there, the X3, I saw an Aurora and I was like, wow, that was actually really cool to see. And again, just a regular person just driving it around like a regular car. And it's always fun to see people doing that. Bruce, thanks for stopping by and saying hi. Raphael says Aria isn't bad. I think the pricing was the problem with it. Yeah, that definitely was one of my bigger problems with it too. And again, if the brakes feel fine, I think Aria is completely fine. And now with them leasing under $200 a month or whatever, yeah, no complaints. Honestly, even that cheap of a price point, even a iffy brake pedal, as long as it's not like sketchy, is even worth dealing with for that kind of a cheap price. But Dylan says internet cut out, so apologies if you already talked about it. Anyway, BYD having that 1 megawatt charging is impressive. I'm wondering if they're saying that's day-to-day use. Got to put out a ton of heat. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think, with all these things that they're working on, I don't think, I mean, I know it goes both ways. People say, that a lot of these Chinese car companies can, make some extravagant claims, but, they are also just out there building crazy stuff at cheap prices. Obviously, that's due to their low labor rates and the government assistance and all that. But, it is, they are doing a lot of really impressive stuff. And I mean, China also has like actual battery swapping facilities too. Some of these EVs do have the battery swap thing. I read an article a couple of months ago about how like there's a place like you drive into it like a car wash. You drive in and you're sitting there for 5 minutes and they drop a battery out. They pop a fully charged one back in and you're on your way. Like they're really doing like 2030s kind of stuff already. And these are again things that are already in customer hands. These are like regular ordinary things in Chinese EV ownership life. So, I mean, I'm sure they have a way to deal with the heat because if they don't solve it today, they're going to solve it 6 months from now because the way they're advancing all this stuff. I'm sure there's, it's not like it's impossible to have, 1 megawatt charging safely. It's just a matter of, again, accommodating for that heat source and making sure everything is up to spec. But I have no doubts, that it's possible. I think also Tesla had been talking about 1 megawatt chargers. I can't remember because there are like I think they're up in Sweden is when they started doing them. There was a few of these like next generation Tesla chargers. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. I don't recall what they were doing. I don't think it was 1 megawatt, but they were very high powered ones as well. And I mean, this is just the natural progression of EVs, as we're going to have this kind of stuff. Cause again, everyone wants to have gas speeds for, fill up times. So, yeah, I think it's something that's going to happen sooner or later, but, leave it to the Chinese again, with their trailblazing attitude with EVs to do it first. So I don't have any doubts. And, I think because of the high range of a lot of these EVs, unless you're using it as a taxi cab, like I don't think anyone's going to ever really need that 1 megawatt charging every day. And the thing to also keep in mind is because it's charging so fast, your sustained heat is shorter. It's super intense, but it only lasts for 10 minutes or whatever, and then you're on your way. So, there might be some of that kind of thing they're, playing with too, of, you can have that, for, since it's a shorter period of time. I don't know. But yeah, very fascinating to hear all that. And let me see. Cara says, interesting comments about the Nissan GTR. I've been a fan of it since the first production models were released in Washington State. I saw one on the road, another in a dealership, maybe one more. Wow. So you've only seen 3 in Washington State. Is that, I think, what you're saying? That's, man, I feel like I see at least one GTR at least every few months, and it's been that way for the past, yeah, what are we now? 13 years of the GTR. Maybe they're just more popular around Pittsburgh than other parts of the country, but that's crazy. Yeah, it's fun to see them all the time because they aren't super common for sure. But I see a GTR about as frequently as I see a Ferrari or something like that. Maybe even a little bit more so. But that's crazy. And TFI, great idea as far as Luke's dilemma there, with adding the weight and doing that. And I see Doji also says people like that justify their existence around their appearances. I too was considering a Maverick just for the efficiency and the size. Maverick is great, absolutely great. Don't let anyone dissuade you. And let me see, TFI. 7 kids, you'll need an E-Series Ford cargo van, aka the Mormon assault vehicle. Yeah, well, what I see large families, a lot of large families, they still love the what is it, the Nissan NV200, or what is the big Nissan one? I actually just rode in one whenever I was on the Nissan Armada event. They drove us in one to the airport with like the 4 rows of seating. But yeah, that's the few like large families I see around here. They're always driving those. And even like Beth sometimes will watch some of these reality shows. I feel like some of them, that's what they have, is the giant Nissan thing to fit everyone in there. But yeah, E-Series is a fun choice too. And Chad says, we have a few of the old school Skyline GTRs in our area. I think they're a group. Before seeing them in person, I didn't realize how small they are. The newer GTR models are way bigger. Yeah, they definitely got a lot bigger. And that was the earliest complaints about the R35, was that it was way too heavy and bloated and, just way too big and all that. And I mean, there was some merit to that for sure. But yeah, it was just, to pack in all that tech and all the, performance, that's kind of what they needed to do without going to some kind of a crazy exotic, carbon fiber monocoque or something. But yeah, GTR is really ahead of its time. I still love them. I'd still love to own one someday. If I had like a bunch of money to spend and I wanted a cool, like 4 seasons daily driver, and I only needed 2 doors, but had to have a, somewhat usable back seat, it'd be real tough for me to decide between GTR and like RS5 coupe. But I feel like the JDM fan of me would probably go GTR. They're just, they're so cool. That is a car I'd love to own someday. And it's getting back to other fun cars. I'm sure GTRs will never depreciate, but if they do, that could be another fun one I'd love to have someday, because I have a back seat, so then I could still justify it, for the family potentially, if I must, have to, put someone in the back, at least as possible, but I've always loved the GTRs. Always had a soft spot since the Fast and Furious movies. And Luke says that the person that made the dumb comment has an 02 GMC 2500 all lifted and crazy. Well, yeah, so I guess he's definitely getting under 10 MPG, and I guess he wants everyone to share in his misery of very expensive Phillips. But I don't know. Yeah, that sounds like a very insecure person to me. And Grant says, didn't TFL's TRX average 14 MPG? I didn't see, but I can't remember. I think I got like 11 or 11 and a half or something when I had a TRX for a week, something in that ballpark. I think 14's, I think, overperforming the average of what that should be doing. But that, yeah, I mean, I have no doubts. Also, sorry, I missed the other super chat here. Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, about to be a team leader at Whataburger, pay increase of $17 an hour. I want a 2016 Honda CRZ, 2018 BMW i3, or 2018 Fusion Sport. Which is realistic? I haven't looked at the prices for either of those. And the thing with, trying to budget is it all comes down to your personal variables. How much are you spending on housing? What are the other things you got to spend money on? What are the other things you want to spend money on? Some people would rather drive complete beaters and then do a vacation every, few months, or, go crazy at Disney once a year, or whatever the case is. Everyone spends their money differently. So it all comes down to, really what you allot for a car budget. And then, figuring out which of those three fits into that the most comfortably. All are great choices. I think the only thing I'd say about i3 is, again, German electronics make me nervous without an extended warranty. Fusion Sport's not going to be great on gas. So honestly, between those three, it's not going to be the fastest. Obviously, Fusion Sport's going to be the drag race winner there, but I would probably say CRZ is going to be the safest bet, because you're going to get great fuel economy. It's not going to burn you with reliability. It's going to be, an old school Honda. You have the hybrid battery, but those seem to hold up a long time and aren't hard to replace and swap. They're not expensive if you have to do that. So I'd probably say CRZ is the easiest one for me to recommend to you. i3s seem to hold up pretty well though, from what I've seen. And Fusion Sports I always love Fusions. Always thought they were great. I know you have one already, right? So if you just like to upgrade to a slightly nicer Fusion, you're comfortable with that, you like the form factor, you like everything, the way everything's set up, that could be a real nice little upgrade as well. So yeah, I think there's nothing I can say bad about the three of them, but I guess i3 is the easiest one for me to say skip or cross off the list there. So hopefully it helps you a little bit there. But congrats on being a team leader there and working your way up, and have fun car shopping. It's always fun. I would say try to do a purchase sooner rather than later if you can, just before these price increases hit. And a Notorious CRG, thank you so much for another super chat. They said, actually considered the heavy passenger van. LOL. E-Series Chevy Express are too tippy. Stories of church vans rolling down hillsides. Odyssey was enough. Gotcha. Well, yeah, if you can get by on just the regular minivans, absolutely. Minivans are all of them are great these days. All do a really good job. But MDX is great. If you do want the most space, I don't know how large all the kids are and how much space they need and all that, but TX is definitely the best from a space standpoint, and you can get the TX with like the 500H version, which gives you a little bit better fuel economy, but also gives you that extra performance. And I really enjoy those as well, and it gives you just a huge third row. So if you happen to have taller kids, for example, or something like that, or just kids that complain a lot and want a lot of space, there's I think TX is the best family hauler, and the fact you can get sporty versions. It's not as dynamic as MDX Type S, but might be a nice kind of happy medium potentially. But yeah, that's funny. But let me know if you have any other questions, Notorious. Thanks so much again. And let me see here, other member questions. Where were we here? Carr says, I'm definitely glad that I purchased my 2024 Maverick last May. Nothing is perfect in this world, but it suits my use case almost perfectly. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, they sell a ton of Mavericks, and people seem to be really happy with them, and for good reason. Again, especially if you can get a good deal on one, it's a really solid little vehicle. Vishal says, thoughts on Ford dealers being overloaded with expensive inventory? I've been kind of hearing various reports. Some dealers are saying stuff starting to pile up, but then other dealers are saying like they're selling through Mach-E's really fast, which like a few months ago it was like Mach-E's were piling up and no one could get rid of Mach-E's. And I guess now, with everyone being scared about the tax credit going away, everyone's buying up all the EVs they can as quickly as they can. And so I guess now Mach-E's are scarce in some areas, but other areas seem like they're still offering big discounts. So I don't know, but I think some of it is certainly regional. But I think, I'm going out on a limb here, but I feel like some dealers, because I've been seeing other people discussing, some of these manufacturers that do seem to be piling up inventory. I think that is a smart thing to do if we're preparing for tariffs, because, get the stuff imported, while you can. Like if I was running logistics for any of these car companies right now, I'd say ship me everything you can as fast as you possibly can, especially stuff not built in the States, or stuff that has a high foreign supply chain content. But I mean, basically everything is nothing is 100% produced, all components in America. I think even the highest one is like, I think one of the Teslas, I think even that's only 75% American part content. So I mean, if you are seeing inventory piling up on lots, I think that is everyone bracing for the fact that they don't want to pay tariffs, and also for the fact that you want to have as much inventory as possible for going into, again, a time when you're going to have supply constraints. There will be supply constraints because suppliers are going to drop out because they're going to stop production if they can't afford to bring these cars in anymore because they can't justify selling them for 25% more. The whole supply chain is going to collapse for most of these companies if this actually goes through and stays in effect. I know Ford said they could weather about a month or two of sustained tariffs before they really start to like have things get ugly. Others might be more, others might be less. But I think right now, obviously dealers don't love having bloated inventories. I think that's going to be a beneficial thing if we, go back to a 2020/2021 inventory kind of situation, which I think is kind of what it's going to mirror. That's, you're going to want as many of those as possible because you're going to have markups on half of this crap, and you're going to have, it just, things are going to get insanely expensive. And so I think that's possibly what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know if anyone's going to say that, and I don't know if that is the actual thing that's happening, but I think that would be my move. Again, just being armchair, 2 cents kind of comments here. I think you want to stuff your inventory, especially with imports, while you can, because they're all going to command a premium. And if you can sell it for even half that premium, you're coming out ahead, you're making extra profit. And the car dealers I know, they all made the most money of their lives during COVID because they could charge top dollar for everything, and they were making money hand over fist, and they loved it. So I think a lot of dealers might potentially, if they're playing the long game here, they're seeing that the same kind of situation kind of forming here. And obviously there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to buy. So it could be, a tricky tightrope walk here of maybe no one's going to buy these things anyway, but it doesn't hurt to have the inventory, I think, and get the stuff out there while you can. And also, because again, we are seeing a lot of people rushing out to buy cars, knowing the writing's on the wall here, and especially with the EVs. And so I think that's, possibly what's going on, because to me there's no other good reason for why all of a sudden we're having overloaded lots aside from people just are stopping to buy. And I know from what I saw, it looked like January was hot for car sales, February sucked, March is now picking up because again, now people are like, oh crap, I gotta get this done now before things get bad in April. So like, I think maybe there was a little bit of a bloat that happened from the February's lag, which was everyone being like, this is consumer buying habits are very predictable. And we had the same thing during the recession and stuff, where everyone was like, oh crap, like I might not have as much money in the future. I better, clutch my pearls, save everything, and quit spending. And I think, we saw a little bit of that initially as the reaction to some of this, tariff talk and stuff. And I think now people are like, okay, now we got to go out and buy, and then it will stop after that. Possibly, we'll have to see. But I know I just read a report from the Detroit Free Press this past week talking with 4 dealers in Detroit, and they're like, this feels exactly like the lead up to the recession, where, you had, just sales kind of crater. But I think it's different this time because it's going to be that combined with supply chain collapse of, COVID kind of stuff and all that. It's going to be a big domino effect. And we'll see which way it swings as far as whether, these cars all command premiums in a few months, or whether they can't get them off the lots. But I think I'd rather have them than not have them on the lots if I was a dealer right now. So that's my personal take on, spitballing on what's going on there, but we'll see what ends up happening. And Van Allen says, I think International should come back as a pickup truck brand. They just teased something, and then someone else, I think also Mac teased something too. So I feel like some of these brands, it kind of makes sense for some of them to get into, like, even if we're talking like medium duty kind of trucks and like, the 2500, 3500 class. I mean, those are hot sellers. You would think, a brand like International or Mac would have the clout and the familiarity and the, name recognition to do really well in the heavy duty truck segment for commercial or for non-commercial stuff, the actual consumer stuff. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Van Allen. They should absolutely do some stuff. I feel like they've dabbled in that before, like that idea, and I just don't know if they've ever actually fully committed. But I think if they actually put both feet in and went for it, I think that actually could work out pretty well for them potentially. And Steven says, what is your go-to in and out order? I very rarely get in and out because it's only when I'm on the West Coast. It's, so it's very rare. I know actually last time I had in and out was when I was at SEMA 2023. Last time I was at SEMA, I got off the plane, got to my hotel, and I actually was able to pick my hotel that year. So I booked the hotel that was right along the little strip there where there is the in and out, right there. So I dumped my stuff in my room and immediately went to in and out. I don't get it enough to be able to experiment a whole lot though. So I just go for the regular, double, just regular style. And I did animal style once or twice, but it's good. But yeah, honestly, I don't think that I've ever had a bad in and out order, so I'm good with just about anything. There's nothing on the menu that I would shy away from, honestly. Thanks for the fun question, Steven. And Jazz agrees about the Tucker being a fun idea. Fuke says, I just saw a police chase in Dallas. Volvo S60 going 100 plus with no lights and seems like they got away. 3 Tahoes couldn't keep up. Holy crap. That's impressive. An S60. I'm curious what generation S60 it is, because the current generation, all Volvos are limited to 112 miles per hour, which makes it actually one of the worst vehicles to evade police in, because then I guarantee you they weren't going more than 112 unless they, I don't know, bypass the computers or something. I don't know, but that's funny. Man, well, I'm glad that you're safe and that, yeah, that's wild to see. I've never actually witnessed a police chase in person myself. That's fun. Crazy stuff. Thanks for sharing. Michelle says 2 weeks and 400 miles with the TX, and we're loving it. Planning the first road trip with it soon. Really looking forward to it. Such a nice cruiser on the highway. That's awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's really cool. And let me see. I see Notorious says 2 of the kids moved out, so he's got 5 to transport. It makes it easier for sure. And actually considered, the NV there. The Chadwick says, I thought I would never buy a Mazda. I bought a 23 CX-50, and it's fantastic for the reason I bought it. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. And yeah, I love the CX-50s. They're great. And let me see. I see Danny saying a cool 80s car he dug up here this past week was a 86 Mazda 626 GT. Had a turbo 4, and the Mazda MX-3 had a 1.8 liter V6, baby 6. That's yeah, I always forget about all those oddball things, but yeah, I'd love to try some of that stuff someday. I'm sure there's probably 5 of those left in existence, but man, it'd be fun to try those quirky things out someday. And Chad says, or Chadwick says, but I have not seen their sales. Are they doing well? Mazda is doing pretty well. Yeah, I think they actually had some nice growth back in 2024, and it seems like they're doing very well. I know I've heard that the premium push has worked. That a lot of they are getting some nice conquest buyers from luxury brands, and even just regular mainstream buyers that are like, wow, the Mazda is way nicer, because it is. Why would I bother with the others? And I can't really disagree with that sentiment, to be completely honest. And so yeah, I think Mazda's doing really well, and I think this is paying off for them. I think the things that they're struggling with, of course, Miata's down, Mazda 3's down. I think CX-30 is also kind of dwindling a little bit, because that's kind of in need of a new version soon here. And I think with the small Mazdas, the biggest problem is there's just not enough space in them. They're just, all their competitors have more room, and that really hurts them. So I think if they do want to boost sales on the lower end, they gotta quickly do a new version of the Mazda 3 and the CX-30 that's on a new platform with more space. And then, that'd really fix that. But Harsha says, I hope Toyota makes a GR Corolla sedan. The extra rear seat room would make it a better daily driver. Yeah, and honestly, even the bigger trunk. The Corolla sedan has way more actual usable space. Even if you stack stuff in the hatch, it's a very high floor. So there's not a whole lot of stacking ability either. So I would love to see that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know why they never did. I know in Japan they don't have it, so maybe that's part of, the difference. But yeah, I don't know why they haven't done it. Maybe we'll see it for the next generation, possibly. I don't know, but yeah, I'd love to see that for sure. Great idea too. Let me see here. So, I'll see. Yeah, Notorious, thank you for the super chat about the two oldest kids moving out. Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm sure 5 is a lot easier to haul around. Let me see. See Chadwick chiming in there on Jordan's question. Thanks for chiming in, Chad. And let me see. Cara says, I forgot my most unique spot of the week, a 1950 Ford Club Coupe. I always love those. I have, where is it at? Down. Let's see. I have the convertible version there. But yeah, I love those. That's a great spot. I had a nice chat with the owner. He told me about the various trims and other details. I also mentioned Tucker Carr's similar front end. Yeah, definitely. And also Studebaker is actually the rumor. I don't know if it's rumor or fact, but the story I've heard is that the Studebaker, I think it's the Commander and the Starlight, kind of did that bullet nose first in the front, and Ford kind of ripped off of that. And I think with the Studebaker, it came out in 51. And I think either Ford spied on them and got and like ripped off of them before Studebaker was actually able to put it in production, or I think maybe possibly the designer jumped shipped and left Studebaker and said, "Hey, here's what Studebaker's doing next year. You can do this first," and they kind of put that nose on it really quickly. The 1950 Ford, or it's 49 Ford, it was the first year of that generation of it. No one talks about that's, like a very untold history story that's kind of been lost to time, that Ford was on the brink of like bankruptcy. The late 40s, Ford had nothing new to offer, and everyone else was coming out with new stuff and all these bold, daring new post-war designs. And like the 1949 Ford saved Ford. Like there's a very strong chance Ford would not be here today if it was not for the 49 Ford. No one talks about this, and it was just kind of a fun little, side thing that I learned about like 10 years ago, back when I had more time to research various things that I just did for my own enjoyment. But yeah, 1949 Ford is the unsung hero that like no one knows about or appreciates. Really legendary stuff. Very fascinating story if you ever want to look it up on your own. Look up 1949 Ford and Ford's near bankruptcy there. But anyway, Vishal said, watched your X3 video. I think the 2018 to 2022 X3s will be the last best modern X3 made. One of my cousins leased a 2022, saw the new one and said, nope, bought it out with an extended warranty. Nice. Yeah, I mean, like I said in the video this week, I really feel like that, especially the 21 was a real high watermark because you had the climate control knobs, which you lost in 2022. I mean, you still had buttons. So, still, I'm sure most people are completely happy with the 22 to 24, but yeah, that new interior in the new X3, I haven't experienced it myself. I haven't even sat in the new X3, but yeah, I mean, BMW though, they keep having really good sales years. All these goofy designs don't seem to hurt them. All these weird interiors and stuff, like none of it seems to hurt them. People keep on buying it. I mean, clearly, we have people like your cousin there who, said no. And I'm imagining there's a few others. Maybe they're getting new non-BMW loyalists that are coming in and buying now or something. I have no clue how they're getting good sales. But like, if you look at sales numbers, like the accountants at BMW will tell you we're doing it the right way. We are doing everything totally fine because no one is leaving as far as, sales drops goes, at least. We'll see if that lasts forever or not, but yeah, it seems like it's working out for BMW, believe it or not. I can't believe it either, but that's the sales data supposedly. And Truck Car Guy said, I saw a tuned R35 earlier today while I was washing my Lancer. Nice. Yeah, that's it's always fun to hear them with an exhaust too, because they sound so much better. And Chad says, how do you feel about the new K4 packaging? It seems like they're offering everything but powertrains. Yeah, I love K4. I did a review on it a couple of months ago. Or actually it was maybe last month. Yeah, or wait, it was actually the beginning of this month. I did K4. Time flies. But yeah, no, K4 is great. Yeah, it's not as sporty as the other turbo, like sporty, competitors in that segment. But if you just want a little bit of punch, I think K4 is great. It's tons of tech. Drives really nice, tons of space. I think K4, they did a very good job on the packaging. It's a super big back seat, very impressive. Trunk's great. Got the hatch coming next year or maybe later this year. I don't know, but that's also really great. So all kinds of good stuff for sure. And you see, Harsha says, how would you rate all of the American mid-sized cars? Fusion, Chrysler 200, Chevy Malibu. I think Ford Fusion is my favorite personally. I've had a bunch as rental cars over the years. I reviewed a couple of them. I had a Fusion Sport for a week. Did a review on the regular titanium version back in 2014. Fusion, that's another car I think never got the appreciation it deserved. I mean, we had Aston Martin styling. I still think they look fantastic to this day. I think they have aged so well. It still looks so nice. And it's kind of crazy to see like clapped out, like, 10 grand Fusions that are, kind of beat up. And I think even they still look like pretty nice for what they are. But, yeah, I always love Fusion. Handling was pretty good. Great powertrain, good infotainment. They're one of the first to adopt, CarPlay. And I love Fusion. So the Fusion would be my top pick for sure. Chrysler 200 was really good. Malibu was good. I actually think I'd prefer Chrysler 200 over Malibu because Malibu had a really annoying start-stop system you couldn't turn off. And the powertrain of the Malibu, that 1.5T, the first generation of that, not great in my opinion. I mean, it was fine. And I reviewed a 2016 Malibu back when they were new. I had one as a press vehicle. It was fine. I don't know. I hated the styling of it. I didn't think it looked good. Just felt kind of lethargic. It felt like a rolling sofa, which I think was probably the right move for that, buyer typically. But I just, thought Fusion was also just as comfortable and also had, some more dynamic capabilities as well. And that if I wanted just a regular cruiser, I think the Chrysler 200 powertrain was better in my opinion. It annoyed me less. I like the styling of it better. So I'd go Fusion, 200, and Malibu is my ranking for those three personally. Let me see here. Michelle says the only drawback with the TX is you can't get a bench second row in the hybrid versions. Only the 350s offer that, which is a strange decision on their part. That's why we didn't pursue the 500H. Interesting. Yeah, it's kind of funny how some of that stuff really does hold back. I don't know how many sales. I mean, I guess they run the numbers and figure, okay, people that, want the most seats are just going to go for the regular one anyway. But, clearly, like, they left you guys, to, only stick with the 350 because of not, offering that. So, I know it makes things way more complicated on the production line and as far as dealer ordering, all this kind of stuff. But I do wish, all these companies offered more variability with options for things like that for sure. You see, Chad says, with the new tariffs, what are some of your top picks for used cars? I think there's some stuff that stands out for sure that I think are really solid values. I mean, I talked about this, I think actually a year or two ago. I did a brief little series of like really good used car bargains. And they actually still are fantastic used car bargains. I think Alfa Romeo Giulia's, they get a ton of crap about being unreliable, but if you look at a lot of the Carfaxes on all these high mileage Giulias, completely uneventful. You go on the Giulia forums, forums are typically a place where everyone goes to, complain and scream and cry about, their car being bad or whatever. And most of the Giulia forums are people very happy with their cars, and it's like they're all cheerleaders and they're very passionate about the brand and all that. But I every once in a while, because I love Giulias, I will look at Carfaxes on old Giulias just for kicks. Sometimes when I got a few minutes, I'm like, let's find the highest mileage Giulias in the country. Let's look at the Carfaxes, and if they look like complete disasters, then like, okay, people have a point. But like a lot of these, maybe there's a recall here or there or something. But as far as like out of pocket, like this failed me kind of stuff, there's very few actual issues. And you can pick up a decent Giulia still for like, I mean, not an amazing pristine one, but you can pick up like one that hasn't been completely run into the ground for like 20 grand. That's a fantastic driving car. You have 280 horsepower. It's technically a luxury brand. I mean, don't expect, anything amazing, but like, you have leather seats, you have heated seat, all these basic luxury things. Infotainment is, average at best. So there's some compromises there, but especially if you're an enthusiast and you just want a good driving car, Giulia, I think, is probably the best value out there right now. And again, make sure you get it the Carfax, check it out, get an extended warranty if you can, if you're going to keep it a long time. But I think that that's a really solid buy. I also think Genesis G80, or when it was earlier called Hyundai Genesis for the sedan, those are like low 20s for like with like 60,000 miles. We're not talking. You can get a certified one with it still has the 100,000-mile warranty for like low 20s. We're talking about a large, comfortable, super plush, luxurious sedan that is so nice, and it's like low 20s. Like if these are the types of things that I would buy if I was not leasing, and I wasn't, just going for some cheap little thing that could stay parked forever and ever. Like these are the top picks. If I wanted something to come in really cheap, that would be really some of my top things. Another one that, is kind of tempting, again, a little bit riskier because it's European, but I think it's F56, the most recent generation of the Mini Cooper before we got to the brand new ones we just had this year. It's a B48 BMW motor. They are just as reliable as any 3 Series or anything like that. People have gone the distance in those things. I mean, we're talking, I saw one listed with like 200,000 miles actually on Auto Trader a couple of months ago. They hold up, and they're not like all the other old minis that just give you a million issues like my R56. These newer ones are solid, and you can get a nice like Cooper S. I'd stay away from the first model year just to be on the safe side, but you can get like a 2015, 2016 Cooper S. It might be hard to get an extended warranty on something that's that old at this point, so there's a little bit of gamble there. But there again, aside from maybe an electrical gremlin here or there, mechanically, the powertrain wise, it's solid. It's ZF transmission, I believe. You have the B48, and you can get like a nice one of those minis for, I think I've seen them around 15 grand. Some are even lower if you want to really roll the dice a little bit on mileage and stuff. But like a decent one that I wouldn't, be terrified to drive every day, from a reliability standpoint, 15 grand all day long. A really nice one, you can get like a certified one for like 20. And really a nice little car. Obviously they're smaller, but you can get the 4-door version. And it's fun. It's something out of the ordinary. Fantastic cars. So I think those are kind of some of the ones on the top of my list. Now, if we're talking stuff that, you don't want to have to worry about buying parts or servicing, and, because all those things are going to get more expensive, if tariffs do happen as well. So if you want something you can buy and just forget about, then, I'd say go buy, whatever Toyota or Honda, fits what you're looking for. Those are still my 2 safest brands, as far as mainstream stuff goes, where you can buy it. And I don't have to worry about someone getting pissed off at me for being like, why do you recommend this? It was crap. No one's going to get burned buying a Toyota or Honda, 99.9% of the time. Everyone gets a lemon every once in a while. There's always, no brand has a 0% failure rate. But, if you're looking for a safe bet that's not going to, make you have to pay extra for parts and stuff in the future, I think that's definitely the best way to future-proof yourself there. And great questions there, Chad. Let me see. So thank you, Chad, for another super chat. He says your hair is on point. I don't know if I got it screwed up or something, but appreciate it nonetheless. Let me see. Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships a few minutes ago too. I really appreciate the generosity. Everyone's been so generous tonight with the gifting of the memberships and the super chats. I really appreciate it, everyone. Thank you so much, Kyle, and hope you're doing well. And happy to see that like Blue Violet is able to get one here. It's always great to see people that are actually in the live stream get them so they can actually participate more that way. And that's great to see. So thank you, Kyle, again. Jordan, thank you also for another super chat. He says, for GM Stellantis, buy BYD and manufacture in the US. That's something I think I brought up in a weekly update a while back, or maybe here in the live stream. I'm really surprised that a Chinese company hasn't tried to do that kind of a thing. I thought Nissan was ripe for that. Have someone come in and just do a hostile takeover of Nissan and just throw so much money at them that they can't refuse. And just, take the shell of whatever company you're talking about, fill it with all the stuff from China, and, take over the factories and build some of them here in the States if you want. And it seems like it makes too much sense. I don't know why it hasn't happened. I'm guessing there's a good reason why it hasn't. Otherwise, it would have happened. But, I don't know, but for GM Stellantis, I don't think any of them would ever, go for it because they're giant. They're all going to probably be fine. And they're also so American that I think it wouldn't you couldn't pass off BYDs as Fords, GMs, or as Stellantis vehicles, but I think, to the non-enthusiasts, you tell them this BYD is a Nissan, you put Nissan badges on it, I don't think there's going to be as much pushback. There's not as much national pride for Nissan as there is for, for GM and the FCA brands. So, but yeah, I mean, I also thought, like, what about Mitsubishi? They're struggling. Easy one there, to take over the Mitsubishi dealer network, fill it with BYDs, slap Mitsubishi badges on them, and no one's gonna bat an eye at that. So there's a few brands like that I think, or even I thought, some of these like struggling, other brands we see. I mean, I don't know. Tesla's not a bad idea either these days. If you want to just completely rehome Tesla to shake off all the baggage, that could be another play there. I mean, that's probably never going to happen either. But, I really thought that, any of these companies that aren't on top of their game, top of the world, that could use the money, any of those kinds of brands, I thought would be ripe for a Chinese takeover, and none of them have. I'm sure, again, a lot of them don't want that. They do take pride in their company. They don't want to just have it become a badge, to slap onto other people's cars. But yeah, I thought for sure with all this stuff with Nissan. I mean, I guess, again, we will see what happens with Nissan. We're still early in the year here, and according to the reports, they only have until about the end of the year to either get a major infusion of cash or some other Hail Mary miracle. And if they don't have any of those things happen, it's going to be lights out for them, possibly. So, maybe we see that later this year for Nissan or for Mitsubishi or for somebody else. I don't know. But I think, there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff I think is going to happen if, again, tariffs come through. I think we're going to see a lot of imports pull out. A lot of car companies say, do we actually really, really need to sell this in America? Or at least we need to sell it in America for the next few years. Can we, sit on the sidelines and, maybe only sell the stuff that we currently build in the States? Like I could see Volkswagen, for example, saying, okay, what do we build in the States? We build ID4, we build Atlas, which are probably, some of the top sellers already for them anyway. I think Jetta is Mexico, so that might be a casualty. But, I could see some of these import companies say, what is already in America? Are those the things that sell the most? And if they aren't, then we bring the things that sell the most into those American factories, kick out the other stuff, because they can't build factories fast enough. So there's no point in building new factories. So it's optimizing what you already have. And I could see a lot of these brands be like, okay, all the Volkswagens that are built not in America, we're not selling them until 2029. And just kind of doing a lot of that. We may see a huge reduction in vehicle choice on the new market if things, again, actually stick and actually do go through the way they are, planning to go through. So we'll see. But I think we're going to see a lot of big changes this year. And, BYD making an invasion, I think, is an entirely plausible thing, potentially. So we'll just have to see. But yeah, it's very, just again, crazy stuff these past couple of years to cover, as far as, again, I've been doing weekly updates now for, I think it's been almost, almost close to 15 years, maybe 13 or 12, but, it's always been very predictable. Like, oh, this new thing has this more horsepower and this bigger engine or this, that, and the other. It's always been very, simple. And then we got into the EV era, and that was kind of the new kind of rapidly changing dynamic. And now it's like all that stuff looked like slow motion compared to what we're going to have this year, I think, as far as radical changes in the car market. But Jeremy, thank you so much also for being a member for 35 months now, 1 month away. This is almost 3 years. Thoughts on potential new California smog laws? So I'm not sure exactly which component you're talking about. I know someone brought up the Leno law that potentially is going to happen where I think the way it's set up is it's cars older than, I think, 25 years old that would no longer have to smog, which I think makes sense, because people aren't driving those types of vehicles in large numbers. So the actual emissions impact to me is pretty negligible. And then you have, like even in PA here, I think anything older than 25 years, you can register as a classic, and therefore you're off the hook as far as emissions testing goes. You still need a visual inspection every year. I mean, even EVs here, have to have a visual inspection every year to make sure your bumpers aren't hanging off and stuff like that. But, yeah, if it's something, if that's the law you're referring to there, then I think that, is something I think is important also to just kind of cultivate the classic car scene. And as long as, I think, if I remember, that the Leno law does stipulate the car has to be registered as a classic and have classic car insurance, so that it's like a mileage limited thing. So we're not having everyone, just saying, oh, let's just all buy 25-year-old vehicles and have them, roll coal and just be, complete disasters. And then you have, people putting 100,000 miles on them a year and polluting a ton like that. I think, as long as there's those safeguards in place, I have no problem with, letting, all these old cars that get driven 1,000 miles a year be on the road, even if they're constantly blowing up black smoke, like, it's 1,000 miles a year or whatever. It's not something worth, getting upset about, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens with any of California's, emissions laws, because there's a giant fight brewing over CARB and whether that's even going to be a thing, and how that's all going to play out. And so that's another thing that'll be very interesting to watch this year. And thank you, Jeremy, so much for being a member again for 35 months now. And Chad, thank you for another super chat. He says they put American flags on Stellantis vehicles every day. Yeah, so that that would make it tough to justify BYD Stellantis stuff. Although an interesting thing that I noticed on Wagoneer or Wagoneer S, Jeep Wagoneer S, the pre-production one, the show car that I filmed back last April in New York for the first reveal of the car for Wagoneer S. All Wagoneers have Wagoneer with an American flag on the door there. If you look, I didn't actually even point this out, I don't think, because I don't want to make it a controversial thing. But if you look at production Wagoneer S's, they got rid of the American flag on the side. I think there's been, especially whenever you're talking about an EV buying demographic that probably aren't feeling super patriotic, generally speaking, right now, that I think could have been a divisive thing for some people. But it's just an interesting change that they elected to actually go to the trouble of deleting that. And so, that was one little thing that I noticed. And yeah, we'll see if there's more. I don't know if they're going to do that for all the Wagoneers going forward, just so that they avoid any kind of controversy or not. But then there's the new controversy of getting rid of it off the side of the door. So they're going to be screwed either way if people actually pay attention to that. But, it's it was an interesting little switch I noticed there. But let me see here. Where are we? So getting back to other questions, I know I'm kind of probably a little bit behind now since I went on some tangents there. But B Mitchell says Ford's putting a lot of money on hoods lately. We're getting back to 10 grand off sticker on F-150s. Ford also claims that 5 to 10% aluminum content for an F-150 is from Canada, 5% of steel. Okay, so that's a pretty low percentage if that's the case. I mean, I think Ford is one of the better situated brands for sure. I mean, F-150 is the number one selling thing, and I believe all F-150 productions in America, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, other things Ford's got to worry about, like Mach-E being built in Mexico and stuff. But at least as far as their cash cow goes, I think they're pretty safe with that. And that's probably part of why, Ford's, I mean, all these car companies, again, are just probably losing their minds right now privately. Of course, they won't say it publicly, but, I think Ford's going to be okay with F-150 most likely. And also with truck buyers, we've seen in the past 5 years with these, $100,000 trucks, truck buyers are willing to, pay a premium. They're willing to pay whatever, apparently, because, I was just flabbergasted that the one F-150 press truck that I had a few years back was $60,000 with cloth seats and a small little screen. And I was like, you spend 60 grand on an F-150 and you get an interior that to me feels like it belongs in a $25,000 car. But people buy them all day, every day, and they're proud of it. And I hate leather and I want a small screen anyway. And they're happy to still spend these luxury car prices for, a 25 grand interior, but whatever. So I think, with trucks, that's the least of their worries, at least for Ford, because they know people are going to just write checks anyway for it. And that, again, they're pretty well situated with production anyway. And Ryan says the only problem is people are already not buying vehicles. So why do companies think they will sell by raising prices for tariffs or whatever reason? It's just that it's going to be scarce. That's you're going to cut off the supply chain. And so if you cut off the supply chain, you can say no one's going to go out and buy a car. But the problem is people people have cars fail every day. People total their cars every day. And people that wouldn't be in the car market and don't want to be in the car market need a car. And that was what happened with COVID is, obviously anyone in their right mind doesn't want to pay 10 grand over a sticker for a Honda Civic. But if you wrecked your car and you really want a Honda Civic, you kind of had limited options. And this is how these dealers sold. They did sell. They sold Civics at 10 grand over. Like that was, and I mean, every car out there, it was marked up at a certain point there. And so obviously people knew they were getting a bad deal. But it was a good deal at the time because they needed a car right then and there, and they couldn't get by, carpooling or whatever the case was. If you need a car, I think those are the kinds of people that they're stocking up for. Again, if I'm, spitballing, it's because there are people that will need to buy. And anyone who doesn't need to buy, I've told people the past year with the crappy interest rates, if you don't need to buy a car, don't buy a car, because you're just not getting a great interest rate in most cases. Now interest rates have gotten a little bit better, and if you get a subsidized rate, go for it. But I think that no one's really excited to buy cars. Everyone knows cars are too expensive these days. They've been expensive for ever since really the big inflation hit of 2022, and that combined with the markups and stuff like no one's wanted. I don't think anyone's been happy about car prices, in the 2020s at all. So I think for most people it is a necessity that it's something you have to do. And I think those are the people that they're stocking up for. People aren't going to like it, but if they need to get to work every day, they need to live their lives. They're going to do an 84-month loan, or they're going to do, I'm sure we're going to see, if this actually happens, we'll see 120-month loans become more popular as well. We see that in the exotic car world, the subprime exotic car world of, I feel like, several of the exotics that Pittsburgh Cars and Coffee are on these Woodside credit deals where they're financed for 120 months, some even probably a little bit more, just to get the payment to a point where they can afford it and act like they're rich when they're actually not. And they're getting killed on interest rates. But I think we're going to see more of that. We're going to see higher. We already see, car loan, installments going longer and longer. And I think we're going to see that just continue. If a car is now, costing half as much as your house, then you're going to have a payment term that's half as long as your mortgage, or whatever. So I think it's going to totally go in that direction. Again, if we continue down this road, hopefully at some point, someone, raises the white flag and says, all right, we gotta bail on this idea or whatever. If there's just so much pain that people can't handle it, there will be, something's got to give is the bottom line. So we'll see what gives first. Maybe nothing will actually happen at all. We'll just have to wait and see. But I can get a little gloom and doom sometimes. I apologize for going down the rabbit hole there. But Chad says Scout brand made a lot of news, and I haven't seen anything lately. Have you? Yeah, they're getting closer to finishing their factory, and that's really the news I've been seeing is just them, getting everything ready and slowly starting to ramp up. But yeah, I follow them on Instagram, so that's the only reason why I even know about the factory. But yeah, other than that, it's just making everything ready for production and getting the orders lined up. But apparently, they say they have huge demand for the range extender, which was an insanely smart move on their part. Very, very almost crystal ball like, it's a brand new factory in America, a range extender gas option for your truck. I think they really saw the writing on the wall of where things were headed and played that perfectly. I think the factory thing was more of a good luck thing in some ways. But I think as far as the range extender, they really kind of just pivoted nice and quickly. And I think I think Scout's going to be a huge success story in my opinion. Maybe Mitchell says international pickup isn't happening. Navistar lost their tail on the CXT, and Volkswagen now calls the shots. The closest you'll get is a Scout Terra. Gotcha. Yeah, well, that's going to be great too. I'm excited for it. Vishal says interesting. I didn't think of it that way. With the uncertainty coming up, definitely a good idea to have a lot of inventory. That's also why we upgraded to the TX before everything changes soon with the tariffs. Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing that same exact thing there. B. Mitchell says double with a vanilla shake approaches perfection from In and Out there. Yeah, nice. Yeah, the shake is definitely a nice compliment. I'm not always up for a shake, but man, yeah, for me, even chocolate, always good to have a shake with a burger, old school. Let me see. So Harsha says, why do you think Volkswagen charges more money for vehicles that are not as good as their cheaper competitors? The Taos is not very compelling for a subcompact. I think Volkswagen is kind of playing the same thing that we saw with GM for a while, and like we see with Nissan. I complain about this with Nissan Rogue, where it's just the MSRP just sucks, and it's like no one in their right mind's paying MSRP for a Nissan either. I think there's kind of the same sentiment with Volkswagen. People kind of walk into a Volkswagen dealer, probably expecting a little more of a discount than you get again at a Toyota dealer or something like that. So I think, and this is a game that a lot of companies, again, GM played it for a long time. They still do play a little bit of this, but I beat them up so bad. Every time I did a review of a GM vehicle, in the past several years, I was like, it's nice in a vacuum until you look at the sticker. And then you're like, why would you ever pay even close to this amount for this? But then, they say, oh, well, it's, we're putting $5,000 on the hood, and they do that. And then, it was this weird thing, and it annoys me to no end, where then you can brag like, oh, well, this is a $30,000 car. It's like, no, it's not. No one's paying $30,000 for that. Sure, you can show everyone the window sticker and be very proud, but like, anyone that actually knows, is in the know, knows that no one actually, that's not what that car is actually worth, is, what the window sticker says. And so, but I think that works for some people. I think Rogue is I think Nissan does this a little bit as well. I think Nissan also doesn't do this. Notably, like Kicks is priced extremely well. Sentra is priced extremely well. So I think there are a few where, they do price very well. But Volkswagen also, I think they are starting to wise up on this as well. I think Jetta, they kept the price low for the refresh because they knew that low price tag is what's bringing people into the door. And what was the other? There's another Volkswagen the pricing just came out for, and they kept the price. Oh, I think the Tiguan. I just saw pricing for the brand new gen, 2025 Tiguan, and it sounds like, I didn't look super closely into it, but it sounds like pricing is very close to the old one. And then now you got something, the old one, not super competitive at that price point. You have a brand new generation Tiguan at that same price point, and now you're talking, and that's something that makes a little bit more sense. Taos seems to be like, this weird outlier of, I guess they figure, some people will say, well, look how boxy it is. Look at how much stuff I can fit into the back, and how, the back seat's pretty nice and roomy for the segment, but then again, they drop the ball on the screen being small compared to the others, and a few other things where, Taos is just not priced well. And it seems like it's almost like different teams, and it's like they're not talking to each other. Like, so what's our approach? Are we, for this, the entire brand going to be priced well? Are we going to have some stuff that's bad, some stuff is good? It's kind of strange. It really just feels like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing with some of these companies, Volkswagen included, where it's like, I could be a cheerleader for Jetta pricing, and then I get into a Taos and I'm like, well, what are they doing? So it is strange for sure. But I think the bottom line is, people just say this is too expensive. They walk into and the people who walk into the dealer say this is too expensive, and the Volkswagen salesman says, yes, you're right, it is. Thankfully, we're running a special this month. Here you go, and they end up making the sale. So I think there's ways around it, but I think you do turn away some people that do look at MSRPs or advertise prices on dealer sites, and if they're not telling you right at the on the site listing there that it's X amount off, then you lose those people that say, oh, well, screw that, I'm not paying $30,000 for a Taos, and then they go somewhere else. So I don't think it's a good strategy. Again, some companies, I guess they really have a lot of people that love to brag about their high sticker prices that no one pays, but to me, it seems like a very bad strategy, personally. And I think, being able to do the low MSRP so that people like me can shout from the rooftops, Nissan Kick starts at 22,000 or whatever it is, I think that is a much better story. And that's a way better way to generate buzz than, the 5 people that brag to their friends they got a $40,000 Dodge Hornet for $25,000. It's like, well, no one would have ever paid $40,000 for that anyway. Dodge is another offender with that. But anyway, very, very. That's something that definitely gets me going sometimes with bad pricing. But great observation there, Harsha. And I see Darnell says he enjoyed the Aston review. Thank you for watching it. It was obviously a lot of fun to film, and Aston seems like they're very friendly. And I, was like, I'm hoping, to get more in the future. And they're like, we'll let you know when more Astons are in the fleet. So hopefully that will not be the last Aston I review. But so hopefully, I told him I want the entire lineup. Send whatever you want. I will never say no to an Aston loan. So hoping to do, everything in the lineup, especially if we had Vanquish. If I get a Vanquish, I'm going to lose my mind. Twin turbo V12, like Phew, that is going to be epic. So we'll see. I'm not going to get too excited just yet, but I'm very excited to be working with Aston. Um, and they're also just fantastic cars. I promise I'm objective, and if the Vantage pissed me off, I would have said it. But it was completely glorious in every possible way, and I'm legitimately like I tried to find things I didn't like about it, and I couldn't find anything really. It's really really good. But anyway, Chad says we should all share car culture. I'm a manager and work with tons of younger people. I've made really good connections just from spotting cars with them and talking engines, etc. Yeah, it's great to share that passion with people. I think it's a really, at least before the uppityness of the past few years, but cars used to really bring people together. And it used to be this thing that kind of bridged these political divides and bridged these socioeconomic divides and all this other stuff. Of like, we could all appreciate an Aston Martin, we could all appreciate this cool new thing, or this loud sound, or whatever the case was. And now again, everything's getting so politicized, and it's in a variety of ways, and it's just sad that I feel like there's not that unity there used to be. I think there's obviously still some of that, but I feel like it's not as widespread as it used to be. And seeing just even some of the comments I've gotten from people saying, how could you I mean, it goes both ways, people being like, why don't you want everything to be a V8, Matt? And how could you ever have a Fiat 500e if you're a car enthusiast? All car enthusiasts must, want to, have loud V8s that get 10 miles per gallon, like the hater that Luke had there. There's just, I feel like, there was always people at car shows that make comments and stuff, but like, I just feel like maybe it's just the internet being the internet, but I just feel like there's just, there's less unity than there used to be, sadly. Even again, I got plenty of crap, 10 years ago in the YouTube comments as well, but not this much division. I think, it was just being like, oh, you got a 4-cylinder Mustang, lame, but basic stuff like that everyone kind of expects, instead of, just the stuff now where it's like everybody's got an opinion about everything, but anyway. Let me see here. So Fuchs says it was a 12 to 16 Gen S60 with the 130 top speed. My work truck has adaptive cruise, and it flashed 3 digits when he cut me off. He was almost 2 times faster than traffic. That is wild, man. I'll have to look up. I'm sure it's on the news or something. I'll have to look up Volvo car chase, a police chase in Houston there. I think you said. That's wild. Fuchs says, I'm driving to Oklahoma City now, but we'll keep listening. That's crazy. Nathaniel says he loves his Chrysler 200. So talking about that earlier, there's a happy, satisfied customer there. That's another car does not get enough credit. But let me see. Sorry, I missed also Jordan, the other super chat. He says Target, Walmart, etc. should have multi-EV chargers. A lot of them do. I know Walmart especially, they had a partnership with Electrify America. So there's a lot of Walmarts that do. But I think that's something, again, they're continuing to do more and more of. But I think they've also realized that a lot of people, don't want a charger in the back of a Walmart parking lot for a variety of reasons. And so instead they want to, try and put them more towards, highways and have standard traditional kind of gas station things where you have a covered, charger station. A lot of them have attendants, so you have a better safety factor. You have some other things. There's some other creature comforts, bathrooms and stuff. So you're not, having to go into a Walmart or something like that. And, so I think it's nice to see the evolution. I even just went to one of the new Flying J Pilot GM partnerships whenever I was driving home in the 500E in Ohio there. And, really nice place. And, you had the covered charging, and chargers work fantastic, all new stuff. And, nice to have a regular convenience store and all that right there too. But yeah, thank you again, Jordan, for the super chat there. And let me see here. So we got another 20 minutes or so. We're keeping up, I think, pretty good though tonight. Hopefully I'm being fairly concise here for everyone and not going off the deep end too much here. But so Harsha says, what's one car that you feel bad for as it's a good car but doesn't get the respect it deserves, and the others treat it like a rental car. Well, there you go, Chrysler 200. Perfectly timed question there. That's one of them. Again, yeah, like I said, earlier, Ford Fusion. I'm not sure if I probably talked about this stuff after your question, but yeah, I think all those sedans I mentioned are really good. Chevy SS, lots of good stuff. Honestly, even Fiat 500. It's funny. I think it's one of those things whenever you are more aware of a car that you notice it more. And so therefore you're like, wow, I'm spotting these things all over the place. But it's like you always were coming across them. It's just that you weren't registering them until then. I think that's the phenomenon that mentally happens, at least for me, where it's like every time I'm looking into that vehicle or I want that vehicle, I see them everywhere. And it's like I probably always saw them everywhere, but it's just your brain identifies those things more. There's some interesting scientific study about that phenomenon, but like 500, I'm starting to see like a lot of 500Es I'm noticing around. Whether it's I actually been seeing a few. I saw actually one of the rose gold 500Es just yesterday, but like the regular old 500s, I always thought they were going to be unreliable cars and garbage and all this stuff, but like again, doing a little bit of research in the Fiat, community and stuff before I got the 500E, there's actually I mean, again, there's some people that have issues with them, but they're actually like, if you maintain it well, they're not bad little cars. I mean, this is why, I mean, they sell millions of them in Italy and stuff. Like, if it was a complete piece of crap, like you wouldn't have it be like the number one seller in, all these places. So, I mean, it's a good car that you can get for, I mean, you can get like a decent one for $5,000. If you want a cheap little bit of transportation that gets really good fuel economy, these days now, again, having more of an open mind on Fiat, but also just like looking at Carfaxes and stuff, being like, on the used market, like, some of them maybe have issues, but if you find one that's been maintained well, it's a really solid little car probably for the money. And just for people that want that cheap transportation, again, talking about, tariff cars, I don't know how much tariff is going to affect the pricing of old 500s, but, there's going to hopefully still be some cheap transportation options out there like that people maybe had a bad, preconceived notion about it 10 years ago, but now might be like, oh, let me look into this a little bit more. And it's like, oh, wait, this isn't so bad. I think that's, something, even like the 500E, I think there's a lot of people that, weren't into it. And I mean, it was a high priced vehicle as far as, I mean, the sticker price on mine is $34,000. I don't think it's a $34,000 car. But then whenever it's $130 a month, zero down, taxes and fees included, like mine was, that's, that completely changes the equation. And I think that, if they, again, price these things well, again, 500E is another victim of bad pricing. If they price these things well, I think you'd have a lot more people that do give some of these cars the attention and the sales they deserve, but that's why execution is everything with product launches, in my opinion. But yeah, there's a lot of cars that I think are good cars that people just, I think Hyundais also are another one that get a bad rap. Hyundais have some really solid, reliable stuff, but the problem is that Hyundais depreciate faster. And when a car depreciates faster, that means it is going to someone that is buying a lower priced car than someone that's, spending an extra $5,000 more for a Honda Toyota. That Hyundai buyer doesn't have the extra $5,000 to spend on a Honda or Toyota. And that means that's someone who's a little more price sensitive, that maybe skimps out on oil changes a little bit more, that, doesn't do all the recommended maintenance and doesn't properly maintain the vehicle. And then you wonder why all these, 10-year-old Hyundais end up in scrap yards. And it's because, maybe there's some of that going on. And it's not that the car is a complete piece of crap, because I've talked to people that have, hundreds of thousands of miles on their Hyundais and Kias, and they're going great. And I mean, I've even ridden in some Ubers and stuff that are, these, I think I was in a Hyundai Accent for one of my Lyft rides last year. And they had, I don't know, like 240,000 miles on it, drove great. So there's, I think, some of that at play. I think a lot of these cars depreciate fast, then fall into, the hands of people that don't want to spend money on this stuff and, are more comfortable with the idea of disposable cars because they got it cheaper anyway and all that. And, people just kind of, run these cars into the ground faster than they necessarily would if it was a car you were cherishing and babying and treating well. So I think that's part of why the Hyundais and Kias might look bad. And when you look at, how many of them are still on the road or all these other things, might not look great, but I think there's more to that story. And this is why context is everything with some of these things, instead of just taking it at face value as a black and white thing. There's sometimes some more nuance there that I think a lot of people sometimes, don't really look into or even know about. It's just something that doesn't really get talked about. Great question. Let me see here. So I got another 12 minutes. So I don't want to get too far behind, make sure I'm caught up on all these other member questions. So let me see here. So B. Mitchell says, Ford did push off a Mahindra as an Eco Sport. True, they did do that. Yeah, there's some, I think that kind of blew up in Ford's face, honestly. I see a decent amount of Eco Sports out there still, but I know towards the end of the life of those things, they were giving them away because that was a car that just seemed like nobody wanted. It wasn't competitive. But yeah, I guess you're right. They could do some of that. I know, Jim Farley daily drives an Xomi or something like that. Was it called the XU7? I can't ever keep any of the Chinese car brands and their, alphabet soup names straight. But Jim Farley daily drives a Chinese EV just for, research and competitive, purposes. But he said he loves it. He doesn't want to give it up. So I don't know. Maybe he's open to talking to them. I guess I didn't think about that until we talked about this a little bit more, B. Mitchell, but maybe Ford would be open, maybe even do like a limited partnership. I don't know. We'll have to see. Because Jim Farley is definitely shaking in his boots. He's one of the few that has spoken out and said tariffs will, his words, blow a hole in the auto industry like we've never seen before, I think was the exact quote. So if he's, that vocal publicly about it, then maybe, he is looking for, some backup from somebody, China or anybody, I don't know. But I think, even with the F-150s being built here, he might, be shaking in his boots a little bit with this. I know supposedly the report was there was a phone call with with Jim Farley, Mary Barra, and whoever is running the North American division of Stellantis. The three of them were on a phone call with Trump in the past week or so, and he was like, the tariffs are happening, and he said he's not negotiating with anyone until after they go into effect on April 2nd. And the same kind of thing of like, well, maybe things will change after that, but he wants to like have that show of force. And supposedly like the three executives on the other end of the line, there was like dead silence. Like there was no follow-up. There was, because they're not going to dare say anything against him on the phone with him. And like, it's just like, they're like, okay, like you're really, they're probably bound and gagged so they don't say something that's going to blow up in their face, but like they had silence. It was actually like reported silence on the other end of the line. And that was, I think, like basically the end of the call. So we will see, but I think that, like I said, I do not envy any of these executives. I know they get paid in obscene amounts of money, but this year they're earning it for sure, in my opinion, because man, I feel so bad for the people that have to make decisions right now. But let me see. Vishal says Tiguan and Taos are also built in Mexico. So for Volkswagen, if they're trying to prioritize, that's Tiguan definitely kick out ID4 and ship Tiguan's up to where is it, North Carolina, South Carolina, something like that, for the Volkswagen factory and build there. I know there's even talk of the Scout factory not being entirely Scout whenever it goes online. They may actually have to have Volkswagen reclaim some of that for just again staying alive. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I think that's what we're going to see is, optimize the existing stuff and then discontinue everything else for the States and carry on in other parts of the world. Especially again, for stuff where the US isn't the number one market for, some of these things, they can live without our sales. But let me see here. See, Emmanuel says, do you know why Ford took out the sensor for opening the trunk with your foot with the Mach-E? They had it before, but definitely that feature is gone. That was a COVID casualty. Because ours doesn't have that. Ours also doesn't have the auto park thing, and ours is a 2022. That was deleted because of chip shortages. I thought they were supposed to reinstate it. If you are talking about 2024s or 2025s, still don't have that, I'd be surprised. I thought they would have added it back in, but I haven't kept tabs on that. I don't love those features myself personally, so on our Mach-E, I wouldn't miss it if it didn't have it, but, or I mean, if it, wasn't going to have it in the future for a new one. But yeah, that's interesting if they still have that not in there, but I believe it was just a temporary thing. And Sean's asking if I saw Mark Rober's video on the Tesla cameras versus LiDAR. I did not. I saw the one thing of a Tesla driving straight through like the Looney Tunes kind of thing where they had a picture of the road and the horizon. And the cameras can't figure that out because cameras aren't sensors, and it just drove straight through the picture there. So yeah, I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but that's the other thing I've seen in the past week, which is very funny and proves exactly why cameras are not enough. But anyway, B. Mitchell says all F-150s are Kansas City or Rogue Dearborn. Thank you. Well, good to know that. Yeah, so my hunch was correct there. And I see Truck and Car Guy weighing in on that as well. Expeditions in Kentucky. Yeah, I know Expedition is in Kentucky. Yeah, that's a fact. And more to come on Expedition because I will be driving that, and stay tuned for my thoughts on that here in the next couple of months. Steven says, what other color options did you consider for your Fiat? Well, there's not a whole lot of options. They have that rose gold, which is like a slightly higher trim. It has leather and stuff. For the base ones, the red, like I had, the car is called the Edition Red because it benefits the red charity. That is only available in red, white, or black. Honestly, I've always wanted a red car, and it's a really nice red on the Fiat. I like the shade of red. And so that was really all I wanted. There was, I think, one black one at a dealer that I, was open to and working a deal if they were going to be the cheapest, and I probably would have. And they look good in black. White is fine. I mean, it's kind of fun with a Fiat because it still has the red dash, and it still had like it had red badges too, and like red mirror caps, which might be a little much for me, but that was an option. But really, it was always just red all along. Was really the one I wanted, and so that was I'm happy I was able to get it. And Van Allen says that's why I bought a used truck. It's a Platinum F350. Let someone else eat the depreciation. Yep, definitely the way to go about it. Especially if you can get a good interest rate, because that's always the other component is, sometimes, it's just a math equation of, are you saving the money on the interest rate going for a new one where you get a better interest rate versus used typically. But if you're, again, getting a good rate, from a credit union or something, or you have, phenomenal credit and you're still getting a super good used rate, then, that extra finance charge probably is still less than, the depreciation of a, new truck. So yeah, definitely makes sense. And it's kind of interesting how some of these things, like some people dump these cars. I was just talking to someone that they said they just bought something and they traded it in with like 400 miles on it or something, and took a giant loss just to get out of it. I can't remember what it was. I think I was maybe talking to one of my car dealer buddies about it. But it's like, man, it's crazy stuff some people do. It really is like, I mean, I guess some people have the money to burn, but I can't wrap my head around it. But let me see. Truck and Car Guy says, don't forget Cloud Culture was working at a dealership around the time of COVID, and people would make very questionable decisions in the pursuit of clout. There's absolutely that component as well, for sure. Yep. And Decepticon, thanks for stopping by. Jay Alex says, I'm about to be in the market for a 2025 Mustang GT Premium. Wish me luck on negotiating below MSRP. I don't think you'll have any problem with that. Mustang sales are doing terrible this year. If you have a dealer that doesn't want to play ball, walk out the door. You should face no resistance to discounts on that thing right now. I know we're getting into the warmer months, and some dealers might try and pull that BS. They're like, oh, well, these are all going to sell in a month whenever it's, beautiful weather. I don't know where you live, but if you live in a place where you have those seasonal weather changes, but even they're not doing well with 2025 and 2024 Mustang sales. So yeah, I don't know exactly what you should be looking for discount wise. I don't know. Because I haven't seen, so I don't want to even spit out a number, but you should be able to get a healthy discount pretty easily for sure. Definitely start at invoice and go from there, but yeah. Best of luck negotiating though. I know that can be a pain sometimes with some dealers, but I think, the one thing I noticed with the 500E go for the dealer that has the biggest advertised discount. Some of them might be full of crap with, who qualifies for all these incentives and all this stuff, but at least it shows that they're trying to make a deal. They're actively advertising that they are discounting this thing. It's cheap. You know, that's kind of the one thing that I think helped me with the Fiat was when I quit wasting time with dealers that were advertising MSRP or had no apparent discounts openly advertised. It was like, okay, well, this dealer. Then I called a few of them, and they're like, oh well, and they're like all discombobulated and stuff. And it's like, okay, never mind. This was a waste of time. Bad idea. Just go for the ones that already seem to be looking like they want a deal, and those are most likely going to be the ones that actually will deal, even if it means going on a road trip. I strongly recommend people, if you want an actual good deal, you have to get out of your zip code. You got to move your search radius out as far as you're willing to go and as far as you can afford to take time off or whatever. I love road trips home. I've done long distance car purchases for almost every car I've bought in the past decade. 3 of the 4 Mustangs were out of state. Fiat was out of state. The Mach-E was out of state. At least around here, PA dealers just suck. So I'm like, well, then I'm getting out of PA. And that's what I do. And so highly recommend expanding the search radius if you want a really good deal. Do a road trip home. It's fun that way anyway, to break in the car, get the break-in miles done quickly on the highway. Definitely the way I would go about it. But best of luck to you. All right, I see we're close to the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to quickly go over the last few here. So see, Chad loved the Aston review as well. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. Harsha says, is it me or are basic trims getting extremely expensive, especially for some models, especially with SUVs and trucks? The type of people that buy these vehicles have families, so they're on a tight budget. Yeah, I think, it's just the ever increasing bloat of standard features. It's very impressive, but this is why I'm recommending more and more base models, because it's like the base model is what the mid-grade one was a few years ago, as far as the amount of stuff you get. And so it's like, yeah, it's I wish they still had true base models for some of this stuff, and some companies do, but a lot of them don't. And yeah, I see what you mean with the SUVs and trucks. I think with a lot of that stuff, I guess they think, okay, well, this is someone that's already in a higher tax bracket. They're already, looking to spend a little bit more money, so they probably a little bit more wiggle room here. We can squeeze them a little bit more to go up to a higher package or whatever the case is. And so I guess there's some of that, or they feel like those buyers expect a high level of standard content, which isn't unreasonable to think. I think that makes sense. But, I think this is why we need to have more, especially trucks, at lower price points. This is why Maverick is the gigantic hit that it is. And I think that it just blows my mind that no one has bothered to compete with Maverick other than Santa Cruz, which even that is priced too high. They need to make a cheaper version of that. But aside from Hyundai, like, no one has bothered. After how many years has it been now? 3-4 years? Like, come on, like, this is an easy, underhanded, softball, fastball, like right down the middle. Like, here you go, Chevy. Call it an El Camino, call it whatever you want. I don't care. Just literally copy and paste it. No creativity required. Like, take the tracks, throw a truck bed on the back. Like, take a Sawzall. Someday, some GM employee needs to go get drunk in the back lot, take a Sawzall to the back of a tracks, put a truck bed in it, weld it up, put a little trim on it. You're done. That's it. And then sell it for tracks pricing. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. Like, make a tracks with a truck bed. That would sell like crazy. It just, like, I don't know. GM is one of the worst offenders for just like easy, like low hanging fruit. That, I mean, I'm sure there's a good reason. Maybe, I hope there is a good reason they're not doing this stuff, but it's like, come on. Like, I think there's a huge need for that kind of stuff. Anyway, Chad says, we as car lovers could be better and spread talking points, etc. We are the ones that set the standards. There's tons of people that love talking cars that cross all political divides. I agree. And I hope that is something that can, be a source of optimism to bring people together in the future, hopefully. It's just tough to see because, again, with just, the division on emissions regulations even and all this other stuff, Yeah, I don't see it getting any better. I hope it does, and I commend all of you that do try to, cross those divides and try to, find the common ground. It just seems like people get more and more polarized as the days go on. So I'd love to see that change someday, though. Keep our fingers crossed. Good for us says, love your car reviews. Have you done the Buick Envision? I don't see it. I haven't done Envision. Envision's been a weird thing because it's probably gonna get weirder, but Envision, they strangely like didn't do a media drive for it. They don't even have them in the press fleets. I'm gonna do one just because there's like hardly any competition out there, like hardly anyone's reviewed an Envision. There's like almost nobody that's reviewed a 2025. So I'm gonna do a 2025 Envision sooner rather than later. But it's just like Buick didn't have any interest in like promoting it, and I don't know why. I think they had some production constraints. They had some issues where like they were going to offer it with Super Cruise, and then they said they're not going to have Super Cruise on it. There's been a bunch of weird stuff I think behind the scenes with Envision, and now Envision is one of the 2 gas-powered cars built in China that are currently already getting hit with tariffs because the Chinese ones are already happening and haven't changed. So, and I think it's down 20% already. So Lincoln Nautilus and Buick Envision should have a 20% tariff on it. Now, again, this stuff can last for a month or two before we start to see this kind of affect pricing and all that. But unless things change or Buick decides to take it on the chin and Lincoln decides to eat those costs, Buick Envision should be 20% more expensive pretty soon, because again, this is already like actively happening, and maybe they've stuffed lots and they're stopping importing them, and so maybe everything that's priced as it is right now is, whatever's on the lot is, what you get at that price, and then after that, what will Envision do? So I think it's part of why they're not promoting it now, especially because maybe Envision will go away. I think Nautilus is too big of a hit. They'll have to figure that out, and they do, I think, have that spare factory in Canada that just quit making Edge. I think that if we can work things out with Canada, which again, who knows if that's going to happen, but if we do, I think that could be a nice, thing. Bring Nautilus to Canada, and then, you keep building that. But I think Nautilus and Envision are the 2 that have the most immediate. They're going to be the first pioneers of, are these tariffs going to get absorbed, or are they actually going to get passed on to consumers? And you're going to see that sooner, because it should already be kind of starting to happen at the ports when these things are coming in, if they're still coming in. So we'll see. But I want to review one though either way, because it'll either be an interesting talking point of like this nostalgic, like, hey, remember the car that was only here for a year and then it got squashed by tariffs, or it'll be, just again a car that no one has any reviews on. So I'll review one while they're here. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Envision seems really promising though. And Car says, for my future recommendations to friends, what is your opinion on the best source for a used car? CarMax, Carvana, dealership, independent, or individual, all other factors being equal? I say, go with whatever the best experience is. And who's willing to give you the most money for stuff. I will say that I've heard some horror stories about Vroom, Carvana, stuff like that. I've also heard some good stuff, like my father-in-law sold a car to Carvana during the COVID times, and it was a great experience for him. But as far as buying from Carvana, I've heard there's been some title issues where paperwork is super delayed and causes issues with getting plates, and then you gotta figure out how am I gonna legally drive this car around. So I'm a little iffy about buying from Carvana personally. That's just, again, the various anecdotal stories I've heard. I don't know what the actual consensus is there. CarMax is huge, so I think you have some safety there as far as being a huge network of and they're able to do such high volume, so they can probably give you some better deals. Again, I have never had any experience with them, so I don't know. But I'm also a firm believer in, if you have a good, honest dealer in your community that treats people well, you can come back to them for service. They're not going to screw you, and all this. There's a lot of things that go into it. So, it's not always just about the cutthroat, like who's the cheapest price, but like if it's like a competitive price, it's local, they're good people, they treated you well, the service isn't going to screw you down the road, whatever, all those things can really, I think, make a huge difference, and could be the deciding thing that would, sway me to that kind of thing. Now, when you go to, independent, those can be good as well sometimes. There's also some of those that can be pretty shady, so you got to make sure that you're careful when you go to a high quality independent used car place if you're not going to a name brand dealer. But the nice thing with the name brand dealers is you get the certified stuff on those and all that, which is great. And then as far as individuals, you're buying private party, you're paying top dollar. Good news is you can have a chat with the owner, and especially on the enthusiast market, that's great because you can, really kind of hash out what kind of life this car has lived, previously. And, that can be good. And especially if we're talking about a car you don't mind paying a little bit of a premium for, you're looking for something that's more rare or something where, it's not just transportation, but it's something you really want to, have a car with a good story that came from a good owner and all that, then, individual, it could be worth paying the premium. It's just going to typically be the worst price, because private party values are always the highest on, Kelley Blue Book there. So, that's, I guess, my quick little overview of those. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. Definitely feel free to ask any follow-up questions, in the future if you have any, but that's kind of my high level there. And last few questions here. So Jordan says, during the Obama presidency, we had cash for clunkers and vouchers for switching to digital antennas. Are old car and home antenna receiving weird messaging? I hadn't heard about the digital antenna thing. I've sorry, I have no idea about it. I didn't know that digital antennas were being switched out on cars. I'll have to look into that. That's a fascinating little thing that I never heard of when I lived through that. I remember cash for clunkers very clearly, but I did not remember the vouchers for switching to digital antennas. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. Thanks. Then Jordan also says, thanks, Matt, for the live. Going to consider the 2018 Fusion Sport. Hope you enjoy the car hunt, like I said, and I just would do it sooner rather than later if you can. I see Shane says the Xomi SU7 is what Jim Farley drives. Thanks for the info, Shane. I appreciate that. And he also says Xomi released the SU7 Ultra with 1,500 horsepower for the equivalent of 70 grand. Crazy stuff. Nathan says, yeah, 500E or 500s are very reliable. I'm in and out of Facebook groups and even did reliability polls. They check out 100%. Nice. Well, that's great to hear. Let me see. Chad says, we lost you, Matt. Keep all the great content. Maybe, I don't know if the connection dropped out for a second there, but let me see. Trucking Car Guy says, I may be biased, but I do believe some cars really do look good in red. I agree. Michelle says, I'm not a red car person either, but some cars have a nice shade of red. I also like Tesla's Ultra Red. Yeah, that is a nice shade too, for sure. B. Mitchell says, even dark horses have money on the hood. Find a dealer who will play ball. Interesting. Well, thanks for chiming in, B. Mitchell, for the person, shopping the 25s. That's really impressive. If dark horses have money on the hood, then they're hurting. That's, wow. Yeah, I didn't know it was that bad. That's interesting. Michelle says, I saw in the Mercedes subreddit someone bought their 24 GLE 450 and sold it for 65 grand, but that person's moving out of the country, so it had to be done. Man, yeah, it's some of those things you really have to. But I know some other people, they're just like, oh yeah, I didn't like it. Long test drive and that was it, and I lost 5-10 grand, whatever. They don't care. It's like, man, must be nice to burn cash. But let me see. Chad says, we love this community. Please share it with your friends. I agree. Definitely anyone, that likes cars, shopping for cars, whatever the case is. Definitely, word of mouth is still a very powerful way to grow things. And I can use all the growth that I can get. So I really appreciate anyone that can support the community here. And I appreciate everyone that's hung out here tonight. It's a great community we have. I love interacting with all you guys every week. And yeah, it's always so much fun. So I see B. Mitchell says, if Nautilus moves production, it'll be the Flat Rock as it's underutilized with only Mustang assembly. You're right. That's a very good point, B. Mitchell, and that makes a lot of sense. You have the better idea there. That's absolutely what will happen if they do decide to move production. Yeah. Flat Rock. I mean, honestly, with how I could see Mustang getting kicked out of Flat Rock altogether and going somewhere else with how few of them they sell. I know it would probably upset a lot of people, but I could easily, Flat Rock is going to be super valuable here next month if these things actually happen. That's, Yeah, I could absolutely see Flat Rock is going to be very, very appealing to Ford to jam as much production in there as they can. B. Mitchell said, I think Jordan's talking about TV sets. Needs to check the content of tinfoil in his hat. Gotcha. Jordan says, can you charge an EV on an outdoor plug? Yeah, you can charge it on anything. You just can't really, you're not supposed to use an extension cord. So as long as it's an outlet that is close enough to the car to use the regular car charger on it. That's the great thing about EVs is anywhere where there is a power outlet near the car, it can always be charging, even if it's at a slow rate. You use that, portable charger, and you're always refueling your car. It's great. And we love it with, having our cars. And even we go to the beach, we plug in at the Airbnb or whatever with our regular, plug in the driveway or in the garage, and it's great. Anyway, Vishal says, forgot to specify 97 and sold for 65. Insane depreciation. Man, I hope that was a really good move to to lose that much money. That's crazy. And Nathaniel says, will the Envision be an Avenir? Yes, they have an Avenir version of it for sure. See, Underdog, wrap up with his comment here. Says, yeah, it's true that Mustangs aren't selling. I'm from a Ford dealership, and their featured Mustangs up front haven't been moved in weeks. You can tell because the brake rotors are rusted. Crazy. Yep, sometimes that happens even from sitting a few days, but yeah, if they're pretty rusted, then that's a car that has been sitting for sure. Also, if you live in a state that does inspection stickers like PA, you can always tell how long it's been sitting by what the inspection sticker says. Because if it's an old inspection sticker, it's been sitting there that long. Anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out here. Hope you have a great week. And stay tuned for some more interesting stuff this week. I'm going to have another used car this week here. So stay tuned for that. And actually another very, very affordable vehicle too. Because again, I think that's going to be a really important focus for car buyers this year. So I'm going to do a lot of stuff. This car I'm reviewing tomorrow, it's a 10 grand car you'll see me posting. So that's the kind of stuff I want to do more of, because there's going to be a lot of people that, are going to be looking at that kind of stuff, I think, here soon. So anyway, thank you all so much, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Have a great week.